All right, we're live, and I just kind of dropped that on everybody. So we don't have any kind of intro music or anything, but thanks to everybody for joining us live. This is Every Second Matters. I was actually going to talk to DJ. I'm going to go find, or if you want, I don't know how many uh, of these Every Second Matters things you've listened to, but I was going to ask DJ maybe go back and listen to a couple and find a good intro to one, and then if you would do like a your version of one that we could play as a um, welcome to the project because I usually try to ramble through the concept here. Every Second Matters is a project that we've been doing since 2013. It's an awareness campaign. It's based on sort of the just be a volunteer. You don't have to be organized, you don't have to be a member of anything. It's an opportunity to talk about what our Second Amendment protects on a regular basis. And when we came up with it back in 2013, we came up with the second day of the month for a couple of reasons. One, it doesn't happen on the same day of the week. And well, that was the main reason. So that way it wouldn't fit into anyone's schedule or against anyone's schedule necessarily. And it would give people an opportunity to think about, again, awareness of our Second Amendment on a consistent basis. So since 2013, that baton has been offered, and people have picked it up and taken it over, different methods and um, different platforms, all different kinds of ways. Can't even count how many people have been involved. But we did last month go through and revamp the YouTube page so that it better reflects each era of Every Second Matters. So if you go back and look, there's a playlist now for all the different Every Second Matters projects from 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 and 22 now. So, if somebody posted something or if they did something and used the tag, we try to incorporate it into the playlist. So if you know something that we're missing, or if you find something that we're missing, let us know and we'll add it. That being said, it's an opportunity for people to do what they want. Like I said, there's not really a membership or a goal other than to think about what our second or create awareness about what our Second Amendment protects. So I try to host an open room and invite as many people as I can. I let our Patreons get a glimpse of the list I send it to, but I send it as a blind list. So I normally people just get an email from me and say, hey, do you want to join a live conversation? So I always appreciate the people that do and that are able to. So I'll quickly go through and introduce everybody. I think I'll just do it in the order that everybody showed up, and then let everybody. I'll quickly introduce everybody. Then I'll let everybody chat and introduce themselves. So Echo showed up first. I might try to do this. Echo showed up first from Florida, hosts live conversations on a regular basis, brings people in from all around, and they focus on reloading. I think Brooke was next. Brooke does a consistent effort to raise awareness for the prevention of suicide. When we think about solving problems with anti-gun people and firearms or deaths in general, I guess, we've got to remember that 2 out of every 3 deaths or 6 out of every 10 deaths associated with firearm are from suicide. So we can address those without affecting our property. And Brooke does a great job of consistent effort on focusing on that. I think Rob is the next one to show up. Tusk, the universal settlement coin, the next level of internet, right? We had dial-up modems, we have DSL, we have streaming, we have cell phones with smartphones. Next will be blockchain tech. Using blockchain will involve money and things like that. And Tusk is a firearms aware option there that's established and growing. Then we got Clover jumping in from Texas. I think DJ jumped in first, but I'm going to put Clover up first, doing stuff out of Texas, content creation, coaching, and awareness on all different levels for Second Amendment level stuff. And then DJ, co-host extraordinaire, facilitator. I've been trying to get him to claim the term roadie for 2A. He's out there supporting more conversations than you can imagine, and being what Clover would suggest is the bridges between the various communities out there. And DJ actually does that between more than just members of the gun community, but also communities online. So with that, I'll shut up, go get something to drink, and let everybody start a chat and start Every Second Matters this month. Thanks everybody for showing up.
Thanks
I
a
think
lot.
we just make sure that DJ is the 2A roadie for sure.
That is the moniker that I might be able to adopt relatively soon. Not sure that I fit those shoes quite yet, but maybe roadie in training, yeah, some such or whatnots. But
Well,
yeah. So I got a
you can't
question out there for the chat. Pardon. Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was going to say I do have a question out there in the text chat. I usually ask it, and that is, how did you 2A today? So maybe once around the horn, folks, if you care to share on the panel here, how did you 2A today?
What
Uh,
order?
do you want me to get start, or do you want to start at the other end?
Oh, kick it off, man.
Oh, okay. Well, I spent the morning reloading some 270 Weatherby Magnum, which is a classic cartridge, and I did it with Weatherby dies. So I went old school on it.
That is more than fairly 2A. Anybody else want to share?
Well, I of course was teaching people how to shoot, so had students on my off day because my weekend is so ridiculous because I have to go to this Connecticut GOP convention this weekend and vote for people. So I don't get to teach people this weekend, but I got to teach today.
I spent the day learning how not to print things with a 3D printer. So I've been learning all about printing and dialing in how to do it. So I'm kind of new to the space on that, but that's what I've been doing.
Oh, right on. And that's looks like a revolver grip or something.
It's an AR grip that I had a misprint on my layers, but I'm reprinting the part right now, and I think I figured it out. So
Right on.
3D printers can be tricky and a little finicky.
I just I just spent the day trying to find a bank that would cash this big, huge check from Bloomberg, and I figured, every second matters. It's a great opportunity to say I quit. He wrote me a big check. I'm out.
Nice. What kind of payday are we talking?
I can't disclose that information, but I will forward you the address of my private island if that's okay.
Nice. All right, I think I've hit everybody that's out there. Has anybody got any topics? We don't really do this. I tried to, what I asked, at least in my conversations, is not to focus on news a day. We were kind of chatting about this off air, and a lot of people focus on news a day. It's kind of necessary, and everybody's got different opinions and different groups of people that they're having these conversations about. But I like to think of every second matters, this consistent long-term focus on awareness and activism to think of what's important and not necessarily what's urgent. The things that are urgent can take all our time, and every once in a while you have to address them. But at the same time, long-term strategy never gets accomplished without focus on the big picture. And personally, I feel like gun owners in general are used as a mechanism often. That's changing a lot, but I still think our tendencies and our tradition of getting upset about things and not really learning lessons and getting over it and dealing with black eyes make us a target for some pretty consistent like slap in the faces. Just when we're about to get some momentum going, we'll get a slap in the face and half the people will sit down. So our goal here, or at least my goal, is to bring people together and have conversations that take us beyond the news of the day. For example, if I can throw something out there, unless somebody else wants to throw something out, we've got braces coming in about a minute, right? Everybody's debating on how soon that's going to come. We got the New York thing on the horizon. A lot of people are thinking like somehow that's going to make a big effect. I don't know. Or maybe I'm misreading that. We've got the rules, the rules that are already out there from the ATF. Anybody want to talk about strategy or how we use some of these as opportunities to learn from the past?
All I'm going to say for sure is that long range between now and November, everybody's got to talk to everybody about registering to vote. Because I think one of the worst things, at least
Yep.
here in Connecticut, almost 60% of gun owners aren't even registered to vote. So while we're talking about the justices and the new ATF and all of that, it's all because of who we've got in the political arena. And it's one of those things. I don't know, every gun club I've ever belonged to, they don't want to talk politics. And it's just like, we have to get over it and start talking politics I think the DC Project does an awesome job because they talk about staying focused on 2A and not talking about anything else, not talking about finances, not talking about abortion, not talking about anything else, but just Second Amendment. And I mean, as far as long term, to me, that would be our silver bullet. You know, get everyone vote, get everyone engaged, and get people to actually move. But that's my humble opinion of being just some bunny over here in the corner.
And it gets worse from there, right? Because you've got that large percentage that are not registered to vote, and then you look at the turnout. So, step one is yes, registered to vote. Step two is turnout. To your point, and you make a great one there about the mix and match that goes on a lot. And I think that when a lot of organizations, clubs, get-togethers, whatever it might be, when they say, hey, we want to leave politics out of it, I think the reason that they say that is because all too often people want to mix and match. They want to make that leap from, we're talking about, specifically 2A. We're talking about our rights to keep and bear, the rights that guarantee us to be able to be at that club or that match or that whatever that might be, right? And all too often you will have, because partisanship is a huge thing, you're going to have somebody that's going to flip and go, well, yeah, it's kind of like abortion. It's kind of like gay rights. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like, what I'm saying? And they're going to go off on some tangent of some other thing. And I've seen that over and over and over. And that's the bad thing. There's just those people that are so, the word is political, right? But I don't view, when you nail it down to the specificity of 2A, I don't see that as political, because it certainly isn't partisan. And it certainly is. That's why the second is for everyone. That's why every second matters. And as, Big Tony Simon would say, the second is for everyone. There's no labels when it comes to that, right? And so why should that even be considered political? And maybe that's a conversation when we start getting the pushback. They go, oh, we don't do anything political. Maybe that's how we start addressing that, going, well, this isn't political.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've had the conversation with other students of mine who are like, well, Brooke, you're a great instructor, but we don't agree politically. And I'm like, how can anyone argue against anti-violence? Because I'm pretty sure 98% of people are actually anti-violence. And so the supposed gun laws are supposed to be for that. And it's like, it doesn't do anything. And why don't you want to do something effective? Well, because it's a Republican idea, not a Democratic idea. I'm like, anti-violence should not be politicized. And
So when you say that, just to make it clear, you mean when you're having a conversation with a anti-firearms ownership type of student, not a student who is pro-firearms ownership, but has an exception with your strategy of suicide prevention and awareness as what's it called? Like a non-gun, what do they call that? A non-gun option or something?
No, I am talking about actual firearms people that I have here, right? That are coming here for lessons. They're learning about guns. They're handling guns. And in the class, I'll be like, well, if I had my own way, I would totally not have guns in the world. Like, those are some of my students for real. So it's kind of interesting. So yeah, it's actual students who are learning about firearms and handling firearms and being trained with firearms who are saying that, well, we don't have to protect the Second Amendment at all levels, just some of them. And those are the people who have that conversation, which I'm sure all of you have had, where someone says, well, I suggest that we should have guns, but there should be more laws regarding them. And I have a feeling all of you guys are the same in that you're educated enough to know we all have plenty of laws already. We don't need more.
Right.
Oh, see, that's interesting, because I don't know if you've encountered it maybe, but when I've presented options out there, and yours is one of them, right? Besides just yelling and screaming about my property or my rights, because, right, there's other options, right? So when you talk about the whole thing I just kind of tried to explain there, that there's options that don't have anything to do with our property that can solve like death and violence, that we can work together with anybody who claims to be on that goal without ever touching our firearms, if they're willing to accept that firearms aren't their only focus. They're really, those deaths are their focus. So when I bring that up, I've never actually brought that up with anybody who's anti-gun, because I don't really know that many people that are anti-gun. But when I brought that up as a strategy with some gun people, especially people that aren't really Second Amendment, that are just more gun people, gun owners, they think that is risky because it's having anything to do with the people on the left, which I understand. They're in trauma from decades of having any interaction with people on the other side coming back to haunt them. So they're super gun shy, to use the phrase. And, they're just unwilling. And that's, so when I have these conversations, I'm thinking of other people, my peers, people that are as old as me, people that have owned guns their whole lives, people that have dealt with tons of abuse, and now are not just realizing that it's not the same anymore, but we can actually share each other's experiences and learn from others using totally different strategies like that. So when you said that, you're talking people who are like the I'm 2A, but that's like a whole nother layer and a whole other type of gun owner who's, I guess, not necessarily pro or anti. They're somewhere in that middle, but that's kind of different than what I was talking about, I guess.
Yeah, no. So like I used to be that gun owner in that I got my pistol permit in 1991. And from 1991 until probably 2008, I just figured if I didn't shoot somebody, I'm good. I'm following whatever laws are out there. In 2005, if you said, hey, would I want a 10-round mag ban? I'd be like, yeah, who cares? There's still bullets in the gun. Because I didn't realize that
You just got a phone call or something.
Yeah. And I was going to follow up with something on her, but yeah, one of the things when you were talking about, the conversations, the problem with the strategy that a lot of people are using, whether it's Sarah with Hold My Guns, or it's Brooke, or it's Mike with Walk Talk America, or whatever. You see this with Rob Pincus a lot. I've even dealt with it myself. Is that you have this in bed with the enemy, sleeping with the enemy type attitude, because our side has a sect, SECT, that is staunch, 3% shall not be infringed, that type mentality, and they view everything through a completely black and white lens. There's no gray area, and so they don't understand that there has to be lines of communication, if for no other reason than to learn the tactics. That's why we have, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a veteran, but that's why we have, special operations that go in and whether they're using satellites or boots on the ground or whatever, and kind of check out what's going on. That's why we had clandestine missions back in the day and all kinds of other things, was to gain that intel, right? And so a lot of times you've got really good people that are doing really good work that it's kind of behind the scenes. And for those people that have that polarized look at, the fight for the Second Amendment, they see it as, oh, well, those people are sleeping with the enemy. They're apologists, or they're, pacifist, or I don't know what the word is, right? And so
traitors, I think, is the word you're looking for.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean, is how
I've heard all kinds of nomenclature, but yeah.
I mean, because when Jake was talking about going to the Moms Demand Action thing, they said from Walk the Talk America, they said they got so much crap from so many people because how can you go there? Right. And it's like Di Muller, says, is like, if we could get into the Moms Demand Action conference and talk to them about what we know, we're pretty sure we'd walk away with about half their audience, because they're there not knowing what we know.
The important thing of what you just said is factual, but if Diana Mueller and the DC Project and what you've accomplished in 7 years walks into the 7 years worth of the lady from Monsanto singing the same song to the exploiting the same people, if in that situation you bring the DC Project in to that group of ladies and have the messaging with the last couple of videos, yes, but let's go back and talk about all of us are 50 something years old. For decades, if we brought a news company into a gun shop, it was held against us and we got black eyes. If we brought a news out to the range, used against us. I've had my own pictures used by the Violence Policy Center. So they'll do things against us. And we've got trauma. We've got people who have literally, think about this. You've got people who went from like telephones with rotary dials to push button to cell phones and smartphones without going through every other technology slide. And these people are being pulled by their grandchildren to do these technologies. And when they attempt to let the TV come in, black eye, maybe even go out of business, they hear about that. You bring somebody in an article in a news in a magazine, you know, and there's consequences. Companies go out of business. Ranges get closed. People come in and complain, and ranges are gone. Hunting areas gone. These things are not insignificant, and people can come along and be oblivious to that and stand on the shoulders of accomplishments and ignore them and say, "Oh, we're entitled to the world we have today." But no. We're living in the consequences of people who've had all kinds of fights, where you can hunt, what you can hunt with, who can hunt. And they've come out of it with, here you go. Now there's constitutional carry in every single state. No, what am I saying? Concealed carry in every single state. Constitutional carry in 50 of them, or half of them. So, you know, we're living in a different world than we lived in when all this trauma was created. So that's why I'm just trying to put out there that yes, today we can make that accomplish. And now we have two things. One, to empower the Diana Muellers and the rest of the DC project so they can do that, to educate our own gun owners that let them do that. They have messaging that's effective, and they are not going in there unarmed. They're going in there like warrior princesses against idiots, because these idiots are saying the same old stuff for 10 years. That's a message that we have to get out to the people that can and easily would support the DC project. So we've got that kind of communication gap as well. And I'll shut up again and introduce Tony jumped in. I don't know how Gear Report got in here. And then feel free, jump in, talk about how we're going to look at the diversity in this panel. Look at the realm of experience and the country, the parts of the country: New Jersey, Nebraska, Utah, Connecticut, Texas, Florida, and Arizona, right? Age, everything. Pick a characteristic, pick something they use to divide us, and we've got it in this room. So how do we get on to the next thing? And I'll shut up.
I think El Jefe should take his guitar off and he can start your intro music for you, G-Webs.
I don't think anyone actually wants that.
You don't know until you try.
Well, G, by remaining diligent, I mean, something that we're doing now, you know, it's not only every second matters day, but it's also a 2-8 Tuesday. You know, extra attention is a good thing on those that I just named. But remaining diligent and trying to get message out for those of us who are comfortable with doing so every day, I think is one of those key ways. And Brooke brought up, you know, the voter registration thing. That is a big deal. Having voter turnout, also, you know, a point being made, is one of the more difficult things. So perhaps, because I'm quite interested in that, some strategies for the voter turnout and the voter registration will be something that I'll be working on. I see that as being really good, you know, midterm right here. Let's go.
And I mean, and this is where I think the statewide, like CCDL here in Connecticut, right? Connecticut Citizens Defense League, that's one of their main things. I'm sure that New Jersey, goal is in Massachusetts. I forget what New Jersey's is, but it's just like, this is where I think those local groups for 2A have a best chance of actually getting that voter registration going. It'd be awesome to see if Donald Trump Jr. could get it going, which is one of the things that he pledges to do with his new thing. But I don't know. I believe on the boots in the ground that are in each of our states for sure.
Well, I think, I mean, turnout is about voter apathy. And I can tell you, I'm someone who used to be incredibly politically active, even ran for Congress and was very involved at party levels. And I'm completely tuned out. And in the recent case, it's like if you don't have someone you get excited about and someone that actually supports the Second Amendment, it's hard to get voter turnout. Trump gave us the bump stop ban, support for red flags in laws. I mean, and that doesn't go unnoticed. And a lot of us are like, the GOP's not any better. And then you get stuck with libertarians that don't have a chance, and that's really hard. And I don't know what strategies there are to change that, because the candidates mostly suck, and most people are just burned out on that. And that's what we need to fix, is that the parties keep not wanting to be. Remember, parties don't want single issue candidates either. The right and the left play the same game. They want this intersection. Like, you can't go to a GOP rally and they're always going to talk about, you can't have a candidate that doesn't have to have opinions about, the GOP platform, even if you just want to be mainly a one issue type of candidate. And I think that's part of the problem. And I don't know how you address voter apathy. There are lots of strategies to sign people up and register them to vote, but getting them to actually do that's a very different story.
Oh yeah,
That's
not
perhaps
time.
made. I heard Brooke and Tony. Either one. Go.
Well, I look at it this way. That takes time. Nothing's going to be done once. Everybody wants the easy pill. Everybody wants the half-hour show. You know what I mean? Everyone wants a shortcut. That doesn't happen. People didn't become apathetic in one election and then not going to start caring in one election. You're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to give them a reason to actually vote. And like what I do is bring people together for diversity shoots in Jersey. And I let the Second Amendment groups talk to the people. And then I just stress how important it is to vote and vote for your rights, whatever you believe in, but be active. And be active on a local level, not a national level. That's where all the action happens. All politics are local. And just keep stressing that. There are no shortcuts. People didn't become apathetic because of the last election. They became apathetic because their lifetime of watching this stuff. You have to change them. You have to find something they care about enough to vote, enough to volunteer, enough to donate. It takes a lot. You have to have a reason to want to get involved in politics.
Yeah, and Rob, I think I'm in the opposite trajectory that you are, only because like I used to never vote because I didn't know anything about any of the candidates. I thought there was one election every 4 years, and I didn't even vote for president because I didn't know enough about either of them, and I didn't want to throw away a vote, so I didn't bother voting. And now I know people like that. But then I got into competition and guns, and I'm like, oh wait, a 10-round mag ban is a gun ban? Wait a second, they're going after our finances? I mean, I'm a little rinky-dink school in Harwington, Connecticut, and my credit card company shut me down because they said I went against the TOS after like 3 years of being in business with them. Now, I will tell you, I am a poor businesswoman. I was making like $200, $300 a month. And if they cared enough to shut down a little tiny person like me, I'm like, the stuff they're doing behind the scenes is just so crazy. So it's like, because of all that, I've gotten more interested. I am like you. I'm actually an elected official here in town, and unfortunately, or whatever, I'm going to the GOP convention this weekend to throw my delegate vote. But it's just like, it is hard because you're right. The candidates suck. Those that are good get burnt out because they can't do anything. And it's super hard for sure.
And by the way, I haven't, even though I've given up on the political system. I just don't think we're going to vote our way out of the problems with our country. But that doesn't mean I've given up on trying to build my community. And the whole reason I got into Tusk is to solve the problem you just described with your credit card. And that's how I'm now active in trying to solve problems. I don't believe we can, fix it with voting. I'm not going to poo-poo on people that want to. I've been through that cycle. I spent a lot of years in politics. But I want to do something different to try to create solutions. And people think they can do it in the political side. Hey, great. But that's why we're doing Tusk and why we're very active in the crypto world and decentralized technology, because that is something we can lay that groundwork infrastructure to create a system that they can't shut down for. I look at it like this: when you ultimately, not you personally, but when the political system fails, we'll still have tools and infrastructure in place that will be beneficial to liberty and freedom. And that's what we're trying to do with Tusk and other things. But that doesn't mean I'm not really good at politics. I actually am a very good strategist. And so I even ran my first time running for office when I ran for Congress. I ran as a libertarian, which I knew I wouldn't, but I raised $30,000 my first campaign. And we did for very well. But I also was very active in local politics back in Colorado when I lived there. So I understand that. My wife and I moved to Wyoming to do the Free State Project, and my wife was the first elected Free Stater in the state of Wyoming. And so, trust me, I totally was very hardcore political activist for a long time. I just think I want to. It's where you have to choose where you spend your time, and I'm choosing to spend it trying to build infrastructure that I know I can build. Whereas I'm not confident, and I homeschool my children because I don't have faith in the education system. But I also believe that creating infrastructure, as far as my little piece of creating infrastructure that will help facilitate trade into the future, outside of the dollar, which I believe also will collapse at some point, gives us the tools. And so I want to create tools that everybody can use when the political system is no longer useful.
I just want to throw in, it's not necessarily mutually exclusive. You can have an opinion or whatever and be creating tools that doesn't, and as a preparation or as an alternative, that doesn't mean that those tools are part of any kind of downfall or anything, or any kind of whatever, either or, like a binary decision. And I was also going to throw in, because we've had discussions about, like, when you just kind of mentioned that you ran for office and stuff in the past, and you just kind of said there that you're less interested in this voting your way out of it. That made me immediately think, well, it's not just votes. I mean, the votes, at first that can just be a way to describe it, of course. But if, on the simple side of it, the votes have to be for something or for someone. And that's the other, another portion of it. And then activism, so that there's consequences for those votes, is another part of it, or at least community awareness and being active constituents, right? So there's that level of it, and that would be lobbying or awareness. But then I guess the question would be, as you mentioned all that, I was thinking, do you allow for the constituencies to change, not through time, or through time and changes in generation, not necessarily in population shift, from California to Montana or something, but like as the next generation and the next generation mixed in with immigration and whatever people leaving is, people dying and then of course changing fortunes as the economy changes and stuff. Do you factor that in? Because I would think political ambition and political potential would change with the constituency.
I think there's a huge market that if the GOP doesn't get its head out the ass and start really hardcore working with the Hispanic Latino communities, they're going to lose just on demographics long term.
Yeah, I mean, in Connecticut, we always lose by cities. It's like our entire state is red, and we've got 4 different cities in Connecticut, is why we're always Democratic. So, but I mean, it's sort of the whole idea is like, GOPs, like you're saying at the beginning of this, it's like, look at the diversity in this window. And it's none of us can do everything, but all of us can do something. And it's
more than that, you want people doing what they're good at and what they're best at, right? You don't want to stick Rob in the mental health arena and you in the crypto arena. What good would that do, right?
Hey, I'm pretty mental.
I make my husband do all the crypto. I don't do the crypto.
See, and here's my thing, folks. We talked about how apathy is so pervasive. Absolutely agreed on that. Is there a way that we can blend identity politics, with another group or groups, or maybe like some suggestions on who would be the most likely candidates for that? I appreciate that suggestion about the GOP, at least when it comes to the Latino community. And looking for ideas there. Anybody?
So, if you want to go intersectional and really go after, use the tactics of the left, and I don't necessarily have a problem with them because they're effective. Like, use the tools that are effective. The community that I already see overlap, which is really going to be hard to stomach and for a lot of people, is the trans community, and I believe is being promoted and used by the left, right? That's because they're such a small community constituency, they're not a big voting bloc. Right. However, they've been pushed into this position of being another wedge issue, right? Anything to do with trans rights and transgenderism is now a political issue, which it doesn't need to be. But there's a lot of overlap in that community with the gun community. And I think Rob Pincus is actually a lot closer to that community because of that. And I think if you want to use the concept of intersectional politics, and I'm just being nitty gritty about the making the sausage here, right? I do understand how this works. That would be a community that I'd absolutely target if I was trying to grow the GOP base, is going after conservative transgenders and really embrace the gay community more. But that's really hard for a lot of conservatives that make up the bulk of the gun community at this point. But I think going forward, you need to recruit people in the Hispanic community. You need to recruit people in those other kind of crossover communities if you want to build a voting bloc around this issue. And you explained it earlier about when Walk the Talk went to Moms Demand Action kind of stuff. By the way, I wouldn't go near those creepy people, but that's my own opinion. But that being said, there's something to it. But the problem is in the 2A community is incredibly cliquish, and they're very quick to write people off if they don't meet their purity tests. And so there are potential downsides to embracing those other communities that otherwise would probably be in conflict politically with people that are the typical white 2A 50-year-old man kind of thing.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
okay. So again, I'm going to say over time, you're going to have to, again, incorporate that. How many isolated white 50-year-old men are there that are fat? Because they're also fat and bald. How many? Because they're
And
compensating.
wearing camo.
Right? Yeah, right. They're compensating. So how many of them can actually exist in an isolation cube that don't have friends, family, and coworkers or people at church or work or civic organizations that aren't in those communities that we're talking about? And you're using one community as an example. I'm suggesting that no one lives in a vacuum, and the trend of the country is to change, to be a melting pot, as it always has been with every community that's been introduced into it. And we have more and more organizations starting in about 2015 than we ever had before, and they've had 7 years on the clock. So just with those facts, how long did it pick any segment of society to incorporate into the greater society, and what scale time frame was that versus how long did it take that community to get into the gun community? Because there's only 2 communities that I'm aware of that aren't already in the gun community, like that don't have national level organizations representing that segment. And that's the elderly and Latinos.
I'm just amazed at how everything becomes political, because freedom should not be a political thing. It should be something that everybody wants. Medical stuff should have never become a political thing, but here we are 2 years later. It's
Well, that's the state, so the state can grab it, right? Can I interrupt?
Yeah. I mean, it's like we're being ruled by fear. A lot of Americans don't know enough to ask questions. Like, I was one of those dumb bunnies. That's why I just say some bunny for this, because I used to be that no information person. I used to be that person who believed there are leaders. They are doing the best they can with the tools they've got, and they've got the best tools because we pay for that with our money. And I know lots of people who are that way. I'm just telling you the truth, where I came from. That's why I'm like, I'm not being, critical of others. It's like, I know where I came from. I was in the darkness and I had no clue. And like, you could have come to me and say, well, Second Amendment, sportsmen, like, who cares about Second Amendment? I don't understand, because I didn't understand. And this is why, and we've talked about this before, it's like, I don't talk about the Second Amendment to people. I talk about suicide prevention, because that's 60% of the problem of gun deaths. I talk about violence prevention, because don't we want to stop violence prior to anyone having a gun in their hand? Because here in Connecticut, 75% of violence is done without a gun. And I just try to, the MDA folks that I meet and the people who are anti-gun, I'm like, are you sure you're anti-gun? Aren't you just anti-violence? Because I'm pretty sure we could agree on that. So it's definitely one of those things. And I have to say hi to Charlie, since Charlie came. And I'm going to make Charlie say hi to everybody, even if G-Webs doesn't pick on him, because I got to pick on him before I go.
I don't know what people think on Charlie. He's doing the best out of almost anybody except for maybe Cheryl, Todd, and Brooke. In the whole country.
What?
Well, Charlie really, I mean, he has a lot of time because he only teaches classes in Utah. So,
and he doesn't come and knock on my door when he's here? That makes me really sad.
See,
this is a long running joke, and I'm gonna run it into the ground.
Pete's going to take everything nice he said back. Thanks, guys.
Well, you're so famous, Charlie. You know, it's like, oh, Charlie's here. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my goal is just to get known by one name, so that's all I'm trying to do.
Hey, so you were talking about somebody who you just interviewed and acted like everybody knew who that was. I don't know, have any idea who that person is that when you were talking on the show, the other show that you were just on, when you guys opened up and you were like, oh, I interviewed somebody, and I was like, I have no idea.
Evan Knappen. Evan Knappen is the pro-gun attorney from New Jersey that got Shanine Allen and Brian Aiken pardoned by Chris Christie.
Okay.
So he's a big pro-gun attorney in New Jersey that lives up in New Hampshire. So
yeah, he's a pretty big deal here. He's written a couple of books. He upstates every now and again. Him and his brother have their law firm. Actually helped a friend of mine out. I wouldn't call it being swatted, but his ex-girlfriend moved out and called in that he had an airsoft gun that she thought was real or some weirdness. She worded it in such a way that we had to deal with the police. And he actually had to hire a lawyer. How ridiculous is that?
Let me be rude and interrupt everybody because I know that Brooke's got to jump out here in a bit. So let me ask one final question, if you wouldn't mind trying to address it on the way out. How do you see the rest of the year for 2A with your insight?
You're asking me specifically because I'm about to leave?
Yeah, on the way out.
All right. So, yeah, and I am about to leave because it is school night and I got to get my kids to bed. But for me, it's focusing on helping people ask the question, what motivates me to make a change? Because I know my story and I had no reason to go vote. It was just stupid information. And now that I'm in politics, I'm like, it's still more stupid information, but I'm more educated about stuff. So Second Amendment for me, I don't know what's going to happen when New York comes out. I don't imagine there's going to be any flaming sword that saves us or anything like that. The ATF and just changing the rules because they can is definitely horrible. And to be probably totally politically incorrect, I have this horrible feeling that the way I feel currently is how a lot of Germans felt prior to the Holocaust, watching their country start to burn. Because there's so many people I talk to that they can't fathom what's currently going on. The fact that children are masked and muzzled, the fact that we have to have vaccines, or we have to do this, or we have to do that, and we have to be in lockstep. And there is no questioning of anything. And 1984, if anyone's never heard of it, is a book that George Orwell wrote that was supposed to be science fiction. And the amount of times I've heard about that book in the past month or so of the similarities between fiction and what's currently happening, it's pretty scary and pretty awful. So my forecast for this year, 2A, hold on, it's going to get worse. Unless a whole lot of people start waking up and finding a reason to realize that freedom is worth fighting for, and they need to understand why the Second Amendment is freedom. And it's going to take a lot, because it took me years to understand how that Second Amendment right has anything to do with freedom. So that's what I'm leaving it with. Good night. I'm going to go take care of the kids now. Have a nice day.
Good night.
Appreciate the answer on spur of notice like that. So Charlie and Tony, I think I'll ask you to jump in. Do you guys have anything that you brought with you that you were thinking about chatting? I kind of threw everybody a link a week ago or something, and then a reminder just to hopefully get more people. And it looked like it worked. I appreciate everybody for jumping in. But otherwise, if you guys don't have something, if anybody want to continue something from before or whatever, I'm trying to be a host and also shut up. So.
Well, mine is the usual thing. If you listen to me, it's about we each have to individually work in our own circle and do what we can. You can't be anybody but you. You can't be anyone else. So you talk to those in your circle, or you introduce them to people like Riding Shotgun Charlie, Clover Tech. I mean, you get them involved somehow through something they'll like, including taking them to the range. You can't force someone into that. But hey, you want to go here? Want to do this? Like, that's why I have the diversity shoot. That's why I also to the Minuteman Challenge to get people out using this thing, this firearm. And it can serve more than one purpose. I mean, I come at it from multiple directions, from hunting, and sufficiency to fun competition, to air gun competition, to shooting clays, to just using it as a relaxation method myself. And it's like, oh, and by the way, you can win scholarship. Your kids can win college scholarships by being a clay shooter, or shooting a precision rifle, or shooting an air gun, 10 meter. I'm like, there's a lot of different aspects of the Second Amendment that you can help get people involved in at your own pace, in your own social circle. And I think grassroots is where we're going to have to make a difference. And it might not be politically, but it can be. And my whole purpose is to get people to try to change their individual parties, not switch parties. If you can change Democratic, your local Democratic people out, if they start doing anti-gun stuff, great. If you can get your rhinos out because they're doing anti-gun stuff, great. I'm not asking you to switch party affiliations, because many people won't do that whatsoever. And if you want to be a libertarian and get libertarians elected, even better. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I think that's a great point. And that's something that I don't know, I don't want to keep challenging Rob, but I think Rob voices an opinion that I've heard a billion times. So that's why it's the only one we had today to be that, because otherwise the thing is left, right? I don't think there's any point trying to adjust the left, right. That's why people say don't bother with politics. But what's that? I don't want to say third option, because I would consider something like a libertarian a third option, something like socialism a fourth option, right? So this, I don't know how to just sum up Rob's description earlier, but let's call that a fifth option, because it's not going to be pigeonholed, right? So when you've got people with different points of view on it, right? How do you bring it up? And I think that what you talked about, Tony, that's a way to address that, right?
Yeah, I try to do anything because because of my events,
In other
you
words,
have people
you
from
can primary people, you can make people not get elected, and you don't have to be trying to get them elected. You can have influence in the political sphere without just being like rah 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 team go. I guess that was my. Right.
Well, I've worked in the election for election boards, election polls, whatever you call it, for 18 years. 18 years. And I'm like, I'm not going to get you to change your political party, but I can get you to be active in the primary. And that changes who runs. And that's very important, because very few people come out for a primary. I was working in a district where 26 people came out for a primary. That was it. 26 in the entire district of 560. So yeah, imagine if you're pro 2A and you can get some pro 2A friends, 15 of them together, you can have somebody actually win a primary in your district with 15 people. So yeah, that's when you need to be politically active, and again, in your own party, because you're not going to be a Republican dictating who gets to run in the Democratic side. At least in New Jersey, where we have it set it up, you can only declare a party and then vote for candidates in that party. So yeah, it takes some work. It takes effort. We're not going to win this by gun owners just sending $35 in for the yearly membership. That is not how this grassroots activism and how we're going to affect change. That's not going to be it.
But that $35 will go towards a really nice suit.
All right. So one of the things
basic
that
dues,
Tony
whether you're
was saying there
talking,
really spoke to me, and we were talking about identity politics early, Tony. So one of the cross-pollinations that I'm enjoying, instead of focusing solely on the Second Amendment, which I think, if you go one-note pony, you lose a lot of people really quickly. But if you can cross-pollinate with other amendments, the 4th and the 14th in particular, and then the 10th as well, I find that to be a way to create a pathway to understanding the importance of the second, and it's number 2 right behind voicing these things to other people. I get a lot of, I can't say respect for what I present, but I get a lot of attention in a positive way for once in my life when I do present those ideas. If people get the idea that their ability to protect their homes, to be safe in their persons, to be guaranteed due process. Red flag was a big deal a little while ago, and it is less and less so legislatively, but it's still one of those important issues. Sorry, Cliver, go ahead.
I was just going to hit on the the dues issues, I mean, it's important to note because that's one of the things, and that kind of leads into the second thing. I wanted to follow up on something Brooke said, but a lot of people don't realize they send in their yearly dues, and I don't care who it is, right? I don't care if you know, big 3-letter organization, small state level. The dues that you send in basically handle day-to-day operational cost type things. And for some reason, people think because they pay that it provides this ultimate protection, or in some cases, most recently, because they don't pay that, it actually harms said organization. And it's like, not really, because all the big things that are done off of donations above and beyond just those dues. It's done with further fundraising and things like that. So, it's to Tony's point with that. It's good that you support those organizations, whichever one you do choose to support, but realize that the bare minimum support of those yearly dues is not the end all be all. Um, Second thing that I really wanted to jump in here on and kind of go back to what Brooke had brought up was the people that are oblivious. We've got a thing going on in our community, and it's a human condition maybe, because I see it whether you're talking political parties or whatever camp or labels you want to put on things. But I see this whole idea of the sheeple. Well, they're just blind followers. They're just sheep, right? And it's those people that Brooke was talking about that, you know, for whatever reason, they're in the dark. And we've got to realize that we were all in the dark, most likely at some point on something. We've got life. We have children, we have family, we have jobs, we have things we have to worry about, right? That affect us personally and directly. This is why government works best on the most local levels. And I said best, not perfectly, because it never will. Because it's the things that are closest to us, right? And so instead of shouting down somebody or making somebody feel small because they don't know what's going on, they don't understand in a conversation, practice a little bit of empathy with those people that you understand. You've been there. I get that you've got, you know, soccer practice every evening and ballet 3 nights a week and karate every other week or whatever for the kids, and you have all this stuff going on in your life and you're working 2 jobs and whatever the case may be. So acknowledge the reason why people are not paying attention first, and then build into why they should be paying attention after that, instead of just shouting them down. I see that all too often.
I don't know if we will, as individuals, get better at having conversations, arguments, or debates, but in general, do you think people are getting better or worse with tech and conversations like this and just, you know, the internet and stuff? I know that the default is to go, oh, blah, 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 everybody just hates each other. But reality, do you think, I think people are getting more nuanced in their opinions and more able in their skills?
I think people's ability, and we're talking in generalizations here, right? I think that people's ability, I think the last 2 years in the lockdowns taught us something. I think it taught us that humans require, right, that personal interaction, right? For everybody that made it to SHOT Show, you understand exactly what I'm talking about, because the electricity that was run wild this year at SHOT Show. You know, as humans, we do yearn for that, whether we enjoy it necessarily or not, right? Whether we crave it on a personal level, at the most fundamental level, we require it as humans, right? And so I think because of that, and because of coming out of the lockdown, number one, the lockdowns have taught more people how to do exactly what we're doing here today, which is great. It's like we can hang out, we can communicate. It's in a better forum than just one-on-one. Everybody on this panel, I can pick up the phone and call them and have a conversation, right? But we can't have everybody at once having a conversation while there's an audience watching the conversation and it's able to participate live. It's amazing. There's more and more people now, loads more people now that understand that technology, how to use that, even if it's at a rudimentary level, right? Even if they're not pros at doing it, they understand the mechanisms exist and they understand at least a basic sense of how to utilize that, in combination with coming out of the 2-year lockdown and having that craving for more human interaction. And I think it's a powder keg. We're in a weird time right now with that, G. It's what I think, because you've got like
Okay,
a
good way,
tipping
though?
point on both sides.
And okay, I guess you're saying on both sides. I was saying powder keg in a good way or in a bad way.
I think in a good way. I think in a good way. You've got people craving that human interaction that's coming in, and then you've got that swell of people that have also understand at the same time, understand the technology, that if we're not able to have the human interaction, at least we're able to do this, or better yet, we can all get together, and when we all get together, now we can broadcast it and bring in, and put it out there for people to see. So I think it's a good thing on both sides, I think.
I kind of agree with Clover on that one. People are like I expected when we came off of lockdown, right? Doing the diversity shoots, that people wanted to get out of the house, but two didn't know how to speak to each other anymore, because of online conversations, being snippy and confrontational, and that just was not true whatsoever. Regardless of their background, when people showed up, they were really pleasant, even if they didn't agree, and we could have conversations. And some of the best conversations had in those rooms at the diversity shoots. Charlie was there, right, when we were talking about how to actually speak to people and have a conversation without attacking their beliefs, and finding out where they're coming from and finding a commonality. And I think that's happening more. Now, there are those that go, why are you wasting your time talking to a libtard and stuff like that? And it's like, maybe you're not ready for that conversation and you need to stay in the echo chamber and just talk amongst yourselves and let others who can speak to someone who has a differing opinion or perspective, and let's get to the bottom of it, because when it comes down to it, we want to protect the people we care about. We don't want people running around murdering others. It's just maybe they're ignorant of what's really happening with the civilian disarmament movement. And they don't know they're being lied to and manipulated by the press, by their own entertainment, by their own social media. And you're going to have a conversation and let them figure it out by themselves, but give them some facts and realize that we all want the same thing. I mean, it's going to take effort. And I think we are really good at it as people, of talking to each other when we're face to face and not online, and don't have and have it set up that we aren't being at each other's throat and being divisive. Like, let's just talk. Nobody's here with an agenda, to try to split us up. Let's just have a conversation. And I think that helps out a lot.
Yeah, that's something that I do on a pretty regular basis when I'm at work. I don't know if you can tell by the sun still being out. I'm kind of behind enemy lines over here on the wrong side of the country. And, I've always been, I think, pretty good at talking with other people. I don't know, people that maybe followed me from a long time ago remember I used to work with a guy that was, oh, I like my, shotgun and my hunting rifle, but why do you need an AR-15? I used to get in arguments with him all the time at work. And I knew I was never going to change his mind, but I worked in a bunch of little cubicles. I changed a bunch of other people's minds that were just kind of listening in. So I do that on a regular basis now when I'm at work out here. And, I still truly believe, and I'm going to say, Tony, you stole exactly what I was going to say from my comment, going back with like the political stuff. You don't have to change everyone to be on like the right side or be conservative or whatever. You just have to have pro-gun Democrats also, and then we win. Like, when is it just not going to be an issue? Like, everyone agrees, I don't know, whatever, you're allowed to drive a car. Like, both sides, no one's arguing about that. Everyone agrees, like, women can vote. Like, it's just a known thing. Both sides agree. So if we can get gun rights to be both sides agreeing on that, then we can go for even further, finally get rid of the NFA and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Brooke was saying some stuff earlier, and I know it's been a while, but the new folks that are gun owners, it took me, I don't want to say it did take me some time to go from realizing I was a relatively conservative sort of a guy to getting a gun, to being to be much more wildly pro-gun. And I think it does take time for everyone to do this. And it's just to me, it was a logical progression of, okay, I got a gun. I know it's dangerous. I know I can hurt someone. I know I can hurt myself. I need to learn how to use this. I'm going to take some classes. I'm going to take some range time, buy all the eyes and ears and all the equipment and all the gear. And I'm going to go to the range on a regular basis and go to the meetings at the club and the monthly meetings and hang out with more pro gun guys. And that led to, going down to doing some target shooting with these guys. And that led to becoming a range safety officer. And that led to helping out with these firearm safety education days to start to teach other people how to do this. And it's not that I wasn't pro gun after I got a gun. I'm much more pro gun now because I'm more educated now, and I certainly see things differently. And Tony talks about how you can't, you have to see through the crap. So when somebody says, you're a new gun person, and someone says, well, you shouldn't have an AR-15 or you shouldn't have a semi-automatic handgun or something like this, you're like, yeah, maybe, but I have one of those, and I haven't done anything bad, and it hasn't done anything bad because it's an inanimate object. So what's wrong with this? And then it's going back to your circle of friends that are probably non-gun folks or gun agnostics, and saying, hey, listen, you know what? Let's get together on Sunday instead of watching football and drinking beers. Let's go to the range for a couple hours beforehand, and make the 22 a gateway drug and take people out and let them do some shooting and turn them onto it that way. And then say, hey, listen, you know what? So this is how this works. And this is how we operate a gun. But, some of these laws are crap and some of this stuff is just a bunch of bunk. And, I have one of those 30-round magazines and I have a 15-round magazine and all this stuff is just a bunch of ridiculousness. And then slowly educate our smaller circle that's a gun agnostic, and then try to get them to come around to our side. And we're probably not going to agree on politics, and that's fine. We don't have to talk about politics because how much the government needs to take over is ridiculous. But if you can get them to say, hey, listen, the government's wrong on this, and we shouldn't have this restriction, we shouldn't have this infringement, and then have that spill over into all the stuff that Zuckerberg's doing, and all the bans and everything, and the restrictions that we have on Facebook for whatever, getting spanked by them. I think it just takes some time and takes talking to people, and I think people end up turning around and they don't have to change politics, but they can open their eyes a little bit. So.
Well, and like what Smeggy said, or who said it? Yeah, Smeggy said, then they can demand that their politician either lay up on guns or get woke on guns, right? So if you can bring somebody who's got a different political opinion than you to the light of guns, right, then that changes that side of the fence.
That's a great phrase, woke on guns. You need to put that on a T-shirt or on a patch before someone else snatches it up.
Right on. So I was going to put two things in there. So you kind of sounded like something you said there made me think, if you're going to, because I don't have friends like this, but that's one of the things I value, and I appreciate you and Brooke and others like Tony comes in from parts of the country where your states are smaller than our county. Like it's just a different realm, right? It's a different world. So I really value you guys' input. So when you were saying that, it made me think, like, if you're having a conversation with somebody and you're, maybe friends, and you're going to do something, in the future together, wager on what you're going to do in the next weekend activity. Maybe they want to go bowling or teach you how to macrame or something that's one of their hobbies that you could care less about, or teach you how to cook or go skydiving or something. And next time you're going to have a wager on something, say, hey, if I win, we're going shooting. If you win, we'll make that chocolate cake. And you know what I'm saying? Like, and then that way you transition into it. Like you said, I think that's a great strategy to get somebody who's oblivious, or not necessarily like, oh, I'm scared of guns or something, but just, I could care less about guns. Why do you care about them so much? Well, let's go to the range. You take a 10-22 and a Ruger revolver, go shooting for the afternoon. And then at some other time in the future, go, do you know one of those guns was illegal and I couldn't own it or something, you know what I mean? Just throw that into the conversation, and then they go, well, that's ridiculous. Yeah, it's kind of like saying you can't have an umbrella on your motorcycle. Why would we even ever do that? Sometimes you can just throw some stuff into conversation, and now again, they can go, hey, you know what? Why is my political candidate requiring that my friends do all this garbage, right? So maybe that's a transition there.
I mean,
so
you
I'm
can't
saying
have an
gun.
you can't have an umbrella on a motorcycle.
I don't know. I'm using crazy analogies because if I use specific analogies, in my opinion, from my experience, then people get caught up on it and they're like, "No, but you can have a blah 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 and a something." So I can't say gun analogy.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I just,
gee, I think. Go ahead.
I was just
Using
going to
the
follow up that one of my things, and again, Charlie brought this up, and I threw it in my notes over here. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about the Second Amendment is because we are a country that's made up of a bunch of people that were pissed wherever they were, and they came here because there was a place where they could be in a melting pot of people that were individual and hanging out together, pretty chill. No matter what era you're talking about, that's what happened, except for, obviously segments of the country that are that specific, like, let's jump over here. But I'm not talking about those core things. I'm talking about the waves of immigration that are happening right now, right? People are saying, this is a country I want to go to, right? It's not like, oh, I have no other choice. Like, it's the only one I can walk to. They can walk either way. They're walking this way. People, get on boats and come here. And the reason is because we have individual freedom and all the other good stuff. I think guns or ownership of firearms is one of those things that fundamentally lets people understand that. Once they understand that they have a right to own this, just like driving a car. Americans are Americans because we can drive anywhere we want. And even if you don't choose to drive everywhere, you understand you live in a country where people can get a driver's license, buy a car, and do whatever they want. Thelma and Louise, Gone in 60 Seconds is illegal, I guess, but you know what I'm saying? Like all the illegal things you can do with a car, you can do, right? Because we're individually free. Guns are like fundamental like that. And I think that's one of those things where you get them in the gateway into shooting, you show them that these are ridiculous. They go, wait a minute, gun laws are kind of crazy. Maybe that is the same for motorcycle laws and this law and that law and the other law. Maybe regulation from the state isn't the only option. And maybe I've been oblivious to this. So thanks again to Charlie for bringing those two things up. I think those are, at least for me, they brought up why I'm so passionate about this stuff.
I might try to
Go ahead.
I might try to borrow that the analogy that you were using there, G. I mean, when you introduce an absurdity, it's pretty easy to then draw in the absurdity the way that we see some things about firearms and legislation. Charlie.
I was just going to say, I spent yesterday at a DC Project Well Armed Woman fundraiser, and I helped ladies on the rifle range, and I was in charge of teaching everyone how to shoot an AR. And I know you guys are in free America. I'm in occupied territory, but I had this thing called a fixed magazine AR. And since it had a fixed magazine, the magazine only holds 10 rounds. Since it's a fixed mag, it cannot be an assault weapon. And I told 24 women, and I used the funny voices and air quotes. I'm like, so this one's AR, and AR does not stand for assault rifle. It does not stand for automatic rifle. It does not stand for American rifle. It does not stand for anxiety reducer. It does not stand for anti-riot. It doesn't stand for a-hole remover. It stands for Armalite. That's what it means. And they get a chuckle at some of those. But then I'd say we've got one that has the fixed magazine, which means the magazine can't come out. Since it doesn't come out, it can't be an assault weapon. So it has a pistol grip and a collapsible stock and a flash hider and a bayonet lug. And if the magazine did come out, then it would be an assault weapon and it would be illegal to own. But it physically can't be an assault weapon. It's not going to fit the definition. I said, but if we had a different gun and the magazine was not fixed, then this would be an assault weapon, and it shoots the exact same, and it's used the same ammunition, the same everything else. It's all cosmetic stuff. And I had a lot of ladies that are like, yeah, that is kind of stupid, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, these are what the laws are in the state that we have. This is the ridiculousness of it. So let's load up 5 or 6, 7 rounds and give it a whirl and have, shoot at some targets and have a good time with it. And tell them to lean into it a little bit. The recoil's more than obviously shooting a 22, but it's not going to be that bad. And all the ladies really enjoyed it. So that felt like a big win to say this can't be an assault weapon, but it looks like one.
I'm just going to give you another one then. AR is arbitrary rules.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So L3 got his link up there. That is Every Second Matters started at the end of 2013 because at the beginning of 2013 to exploit an atrocity. Obama put 23 executive orders on the table, suggesting that since he had everything going his way, he was just going to throw down these new gun laws. 23 executive orders. There was no way we were going to be able to combat 23 different directives or whatever, right? Grassroots activism effectively squashed the first initial momentum, and then every subsequent thing he put out there. A couple of times on like a Friday evening, he would shove a couple of things through. But when a bunch of us who'd been having conversations like this very regularly, like literally every night, multiple shows like this, really thriving on the vibe of 2013 and that resistance to Obama's executive actions, a bunch of us saw the apathy start to happen towards the end of the year. And in conversations like this, Every Second Matters happened. It happened in a series, if I remember right, 3 conversations, and those were in that dude's chat. So he's still around. He does 3D printing. Rob was just talking about doing 3D printing. I learned everything I know about 3D printing, and I'm a master at this point from Luke. So anytime you want, we can have, or anytime it works out, let's definitely have a 3D print / cyber chat, cyber currency chat.
I might need to like call you because I'm still figuring stuff out.
Anytime, seriously, anytime. Whenever you're having a glitch, let me know because I'm learning and I'm enjoying it, and yeah, we'll share it. But yeah, I'll shut up again. Let everybody chat again.
Cool.
Tony, can you believe this? These guys are 3D printing their stuff at home. This is unbelievable here on the in the Northeast that people would enjoy such freedoms.
I'm actually in fear of my life just being in a meeting with them online because they can do this. It's wow. I'm scared.
It's not just the Northeast. I'm here in Texas. I can't believe that's legal. I don't get it. I don't get it. Why do you need to build your own at home? I don't get it.
What are you, a criminal? That's why you want to build your stuff at home? What?
Are you're going to build your own gun to go hunting? What? That don't make any sense. Come on, man.
What's next? You're going to build a nuclear weapon?
If I had the money and
Welcome
the space,
to Twitter.
yeah.
My thing is super lagging. I've gone beyond printing guns, and I print gun museums. This is the J.M. Davis Museum, and that's the 45th Infantry Division Museum, and that's a little Smeggy doll.
See?
It's very cute.
Well beyond. Hey guys, I'm going to bounce out of here because 4:00 wake ups come really early.
Later, Tony.
But it was great talking to you guys again, and every second matters. I'll talk to you.
Have a great night. Yeah, I got to bow as well. I do appreciate all what you guys are doing. I learn something every time I come here, and maybe you guys can get rid of my apathy because I'm so burned out on politics. But that's probably a different conversation. But I do appreciate it.
Just got to shift the focus, Rob.
And not feeling like picking on you and allowing me to give you a challenge.
No.
Because that's really what it's all about. And I value, like I say, the insight because of your experience. And then, again, the internet's changing. Let me put it this way. And I've just learned about this thing, and I think it's a great way to explain why cyber is next. Blockchain is next. So we got the internet. We all know that it came from one computer in California basically talking to another computer, right? Why'd they do that? Because they wanted the resources of these other computers, but they couldn't afford to buy computers that were the size of rooms, right? So at a time in computer, they needed to share resources, and it was expensive to make long distance calls. So they figured out ways to chop the information that they were going to use to share the resources, like, computer that could do this or computer that could do that, into little bits that they could shove across old-fashioned telephone lines, which were back in the day literally copper lines. That's changed. We use cell phones now. So why is the internet running around on these little ice skates or roller skates? Because that's what was necessary back when long distance calls were expensive. The internet's changing, and the way the internet's going to change, the internet's layers, and those initial layers of the internet that laid down on copper wires, those are becoming less and less necessary when we have cell phones and refrigerators and lampposts that can talk to each other that provide the internet, the network. So as that changes, the way things change, having one computer do all the work, one computer be the brain, one computer tell you what's up, one bank telling you where your checks are coming from, one this, one that, you're going to have evolution, and part of that evolution is the blockchain. And I won't get all into that, but we're looking at massive steps in evolution, the same way we went from dial telephones to push button to cordless to cell phones to smartphones. Internet's changing. Blockchain's part of it. Has created an established blockchain coin that is focused on our community and our needs, and is going to. Again, I appreciate your sticking around and letting people. I can't imagine. I would like to have you on one Monday actually to talk about your motivation, because I can't imagine the level of discouragement you get constantly from people that are like, "Oh, I don't understand that." I have never been in a room with you where people didn't tell you, "Oh, I don't understand that." They'll usually thank you, but I don't understand that.
No, it's all good, man. Yeah, I think ultimately there's a lot of pieces that we all need to chip away at this. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Well, if you got lots of people biting at different parts of the elephant, it goes faster. And I do believe, as you just said, the blockchain is part of that. And maybe and there certainly is a role for activism. There certainly is a role for being a part of the political discord. I find I don't have the stomach for it anymore, just because I have a hard time not telling politicians to F off. And so I'm not the guy you went out front anymore with that. And I admit that's a failing. Like, I just know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at anymore. And I just don't have the patience to deal with the fluff around politics. But I do have the patience to try to build infrastructure. And I like the technology piece, because I'm not trying to pretend to be someone I'm not, or try to, placate someone who I disagree with on 99% of things to try to get them over on one thing. I just have a hard time doing that. So, but I admit that, and I understand what my limitations are. Anyways, guys, I do got to go. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much, and keep up the good work. Okay, guys?
Bye, Rob.
Thanks.
I'm going to take this opportunity to hop out as well. I've got some more editing to do before I have to call it a night, and I've already done a couple shows tonight. So I'm glad to hop on. I appreciate the invite, and it was great to talk to you guys and catch up. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Later, Charlie. So
all right, we're at an hour or something. Should we keep going? Go ahead.
And there were 6. Yeah, if you don't mind for a little bit, because El Jefe down there, Jeff, was bringing up something out there in the side chat. You want to riff on that for a little bit, Jeff? What you were talking about with the ability to be able to share stories?
Okay. I hit the wrong shortcut. and then it locked me out. Well, I tried to do Control D to unmute, and I hit S by mistake, and it opened a window to save something, and then it wouldn't let me unmute. So, operator error. Telling stories is something I've been spending a lot of time thinking about. I had done 100 episodes of a weekly live show before it really sunk into me that we're just rambling around talking, and I wasn't getting people to really tell stories. And I've listened to a lot of different podcasts and instructional things about the power of stories. If you think about it, I mean, anything that people rally behind, it's because they're convinced that it's worthy of their effort and attention. And what convinced them of that? Well, someone told them a story that convinced them that it was worthwhile. So,
or they read a story, or whatever the case may be. Yeah,
wherever it came from, someone created that story, and so this has been very interesting, listening to different approaches of how people are trying to advance this cause. And I don't know, it kept coming back to me that maybe the more effective way is to not really like let go of the whole idea. Rob's tired of fighting with politicians. Well, you know what? Don't fight with politicians. Tell stories to the people who influence the politicians, so that those other people will go fight with the politicians.
Nice.
Does that make sense? but I think the story, I mean, Charlie was talking about some very specific examples he was giving as he was working at the range. And those examples, I think, for the amount of time that he had available, were probably about the best that you could do, right? But I think when it's transparent what the goal is too early, then people feel manipulated and can easily go defensive early. But if you work on kind of talking about the fundamental drivers, and you know, I hate to say it, because we're talking about kind of pulling some emotional heartstrings with people, but focus them on those kind of the things that motivate them to care about this, you know, protecting loved ones, or, you know, people in danger, people in precarious situations, you know, old people who have no ability to protect themselves physically, or you know, uh, whatever keeps people from being able to, where, you know, they're clearly at the mercy of anyone who wants to do something to them, because they don't really have the ability to resist on their own. You know, I think that those stories of people in vulnerable positions, um, are probably, um, you know, I didn't want to say the gateway, because I think that, you know, use 22 as your gateway to guns was already said, and that was brilliant, and it was gold. So I don't want to throw another gateway out there, but I think that those emotional motivations are the things that are going to get people thinking about what we need them to think about, so that then they'll be willing to take action.
Yeah, when you brought that up, or when you started talking about that, you sparked something in my memory, something that's always fascinated. That yeah, it's I was to this day I'm still fascinated by it. It's like if we could ever unlock whatever that is, right? And it's almost like this is going to sound bad, but it's almost like the cultish thing. You hear about the cult leader, right? That gathers all these people and then they all drink Kool-Aid. Or it's like, what did he do that they were so devoted to that? And a real life example that I've had experience with, I had a dentist one time. I say one time, I mean, if he was still able to practice, he'd still be my dentist. But anyway, um, great dentist, tons of money, big house, the perfect life, right? You can imagine, dentist, not like he was lacking money, great cars, the whole nine, right? And so he ended up getting busted. There was some tax issues and some other things going on, right? And he got busted for all of that, and he went to prison. Well, he started, I won't mention his name, but he started doing his dentistry like in the shadows on the side. Like you would literally show up to a building, and yes, I would go to him because he was still an awesome dentist, even though he didn't have a license. But you would literally show up to a building that was all blacked out windows, and somebody would unlock the door, bring you in, lock the door behind you. You know, it was all hush hush, paid in cash, right? And so I went to him a few times that way, and we were back there, and I said, "Can I ask you a question?" This, and I won't give his name, but you know, doctor, whatever. I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He's like, "Sure." I was like, "How come you got into all the trouble and you went down this road and all this not paying taxes and this weird stuff and everything that's affected your life the way it is? Do you mind, sharing that?" And he's like, "It was really simple." He's like, "One night I read a book." And he read a book on something like the Republic of Texas, or something to do with birthright, or something of that nature. And I'm not familiar with all of that stuff, but literally that he was he had it all, right? The American dream, the quintessential life everybody dreams for type thing. And one night he read a book, and it snowballed from there. He met a book, he joined up with some like-minded people. And when you were talking about that, Jeff, that's what clicked in my mind. It's like, how can we do things like that, but in a good way?
That's the thing that sparked in my brain, because I basically had that same thing. Something sparked as soon as it said go with stories. Is what was it, about a month ago when they were doing, I forget what state that was, but it was a like an open hearing, and they did it all on Zoom, and a bunch of awesome pro gun people came out, and some of the DC Project people came out, and one of the laws was not allowing carry on public transit, and there was a few pretty good stories about, women that had been attacked, and that's why they went and got a carry permit, and it makes them feel safe, and da 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 da. And that story of like, this is, I have this to protect myself, and you're trying to take that away from me, or people like me that need to use the bus. Like, well, how come the person who uses the bus isn't allowed to protect themselves? But if you have enough money to own a car, then you can protect yourself. Like, that's not fair. But it was really humanizing, and it tells a story of like, it's not gun ownership because whatever, you're some crazy person. It's, I want to protect myself.
Well, one of the biggest things when we talk about these stories, Susanna Hupp, I believe that's her name, the daughter that was involved in the Texas Lubies massacre that happened years. It was actually what kicked off the whole motion here in Texas. That's sort of what kicked off the progression that got us concealed handgun license to carry, ultimately our constitutional carry rights back. Was her and her testimony in front of Congress. And she talks about that day and essentially watching her parents get executed right in front of her, knowing that she had a firearm in the car. And of course, she tells it with the passion and everything else because she lived it. And that, I remember that testimony being profound for me. And that testimony for anybody out there is on YouTube. It's out there. It's been put in numerous publications and books and on websites and everything else, I'm sure. So that's the other part of the puzzle, this telling the story that's missing to me, is like, I firmly believe that there are certain people out there that only certain people can reach, right? Only a story from a particular individual is going to affect them. So like, how do we identify those things, and then how can we potentially distribute or redistribute said things? So it's not just a question of us becoming great storytellers ourselves, but being able to pick up on good stories to then figure out how we can echo and amplify those stories, right?
Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be your story. It doesn't have to be my story. I think that, the more I think about this, yeah, and to Brooke's point, people don't want to learn. If you present it to someone as, here, do your research, then they don't want to engage in that. But
Right.
everyone likes a good story. So I think that we kind of need to become curators of good stories. We need to keep an ear out for that. And it's something that I realized as I've been paying attention to this the last couple of weeks. I realize how many amazing stories I've heard and then immediately forgot. It's like a good joke. I can't remember jokes to save my backside. I can't.
Right.
It's terrible because a good joke's it's a little good snippet of a story. But I think if we kind of make an effort to become curators of the good, impactful stories, and put some effort into organizing them. Maybe it means actually writing them down and having a file that before you go to an event, before you you're going to be around some people, maybe you review, categorize them. What is the moral of this story, so to speak, and have a couple different categories that they're in, and refresh yourself on a couple different stories so that you're kind of armed and ready when you go in there.
And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, G, I want you to jump in here on this because you're certainly
Oh,
familiar
you're
with
wrong.
DC
Oh,
Project.
go ahead and say it first, I guess.
No, I think that's part of the power of the DC Project, right? Is the stories.
Oh, snap. You're saying what Jeff's saying is already been done for the last 7 years by 50 chicks who, on their own time and with their own money, take time off of work and leave their own families so that they can do exactly that, knock on the door of each representative and
Tell their
mix themselves up so that gun-friendly and gun-unfriendly states hear the stories from vice versa. Damn, you're damn right. It has been done already. If we supported them, who knows where we'd be.
And also learn from them, right? And I think that's where Jeff was
Oh,
going.
yeah, exactly. When are they going to start giving us videos all the damn time, right? Yeah, they got a little obligation going on there, but that's okay. They're doing pretty good. Did you see the last video quality of their last production stuff?
Oh yeah,
They're on an exponential curve. Eventually, we will get stories. We've already got. What am I saying? The last 3 videos are stories of individuals, but well, I'm not just on it, but we'll eventually get exactly what you're saying. I think stories from them because that's exactly what they're doing.
right.
And why wouldn't it work? Sending it out to the world if it's worked.
Well, maybe,
Relating it to
and gee, Jeff, I mean, anybody jump in on this? Maybe there's something to be said. I know that I have guests on the podcast. You know, it's interview style, and it lasts for an hour. And the stories, there's great stories in there, but they often get lost in everything else. Questions with the live chat, meandering down other avenues, falling down rabbit holes. We all do live. We know what it's like. What if more of the 2A content creators were able to capture those stories, just those stories, right? And we all put them up there. And what if we did it in an organized way? Whether we reach out to people, the ladies with DC Project, or we reach out with somebody, and then we also share those with other people that do content and go, okay, look, I've got this person. They've got an excellent story. You know, let's get the audio, and we can tailor that, package that however we want for our own channel, and then blast it out. Could we amplify and echo that way?
So what's really interesting.
Let me just interrupt for a second because this thing is biting its own tail. Because one of the dudes the guy that started or that created the logo for this whole thing, Every Second Matters, that logo was drawn up by Artisan Tony. Some of you know him from some of the live chats out there. Went back in the day before all this, rewind to where Nothing Fancy was the biggest channel and I was the second biggest channel, pre-2012. At that time, Artisan Tony was hosting and part of a lot of the live conversations that I was alluding to that were sort of the visual evidence of all that grassroots stuff. And that's one of the things that Tony did intentionally with his channel when he could have. And trust me, he was behind the scenes with giant channels at the time when they were becoming giant channels. So he knew the recipes. And instead of following the recipes, he intentionally did a bunch of interviews with old timers because he wanted to use this medium and tools to archive stuff. So not quite what we're talking about, but just kind of like I say, this thing's the snake biting its own tail here. It all started like literally the logo's drawn by a guy who did this, I don't know, 2010 probably. Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry, I was interrupting Jeff. Go ahead.
Well, I was initially when I heard the discussion of uploading these stories, I was thinking, well, but we're not going to get the right audience to go there because, but then it hit me. I was like, well, no, we upload it for us. We're never going to get an anti-gun activist to go watch our stories with an open mind when they know it's on a site that's promoting something that is antithetical to what they're about. So
can I pause you for a minute there,
but
Jeff?
it's for us, right? I mean,
no, not really. I don't think so. So here's where if it's a coordinated effort, and there's care taken. All too often, I just had this conversation with some folks with YouTube today, talking about titles and the way that gun tubers typically do their videos and reviews and things like that. And we tend to stick to, this is the review for model XYZ from company ABC in 123 caliber, right? And it's like, that's the title. And that's great for people that are getting on YouTube and they're searching for information on that. So from the educational standpoint, whatever. But there's a whole host of YouTube, a whole section of YouTube that is infotainment, entertainment, and the titles aren't like that. They're not conducive to any type of SEO search terms, anything like that. The titles are, and you've seen channels that have utilized this, even gun tuber channels that have utilized this to their benefit as far as audience gain, right? So I think there's a way that it can be approached and tailored, where we can all have our own little breakout of it. And at the same time, we can all tailor it to where YouTube could potentially serve that up. You just have to look for the nuggets, right? You have to look for, okay, the person saying this, what is their background? Where are they coming from? Are they a single mom? Did they grow up in Chicago? Did they grow up in New York City? Did they, and you tailor your title and your description and the way that you package that story. You tailor it not from this is a gun person talking about a self-defense incident. You tailor it in the thing of this particular story and you put it in a positive light, their triumph, because I think the story needs to be A to Z. It needs to be they went through whatever the event was. This is how they came out on the other side of that, right? That way you bookend it. And so you have that, but you're able to put it out in more of a context of like an entertainment thing than archival. And so, yes, your subscribers, which is the very small minority, it's the minority of what watches your videos are subscribers. The vast majority, or at least it should be, if you go check your channel analytics, you should be 90 something percent that are non-subscribed. Well, so there's reason for that. The reason for that is because YouTube is pushing that out to other people. So for us to sit here and say our stuff is not getting in front of other people, I think is inaccurate. It's just we've got to package it in a way that when YouTube does put it in front of other people, that they're going to click, they're going to listen, and maybe it doesn't change their mind today. Maybe it doesn't change their mind tomorrow. But, God forbid, maybe it happens, a similar event has to happen in their life before they fall back on it. But eventually, we change minds, hearts and minds, actually.
Yeah, so you talked about these little tidbits. Whether you love or hate Joe Rogan, he has mastered pulling out of a 4-hour show 2 to 10-minute clips and then using the search algorithm and whatever way they describe what happens in that clip to get people to watch that. And you watch a few of those and then it's like, well, okay, maybe I should go watch and see what the big picture is with that show. And I think maybe that's an opportunity, pulling out little snippets, maybe even leaving some of the things unresolved, like strategically. You look at outlines for telling a story, and I apologize. I attempted to paste a link to how to tell a great story, and apparently I don't have permission to do that. So, but you can just search for that. Go use your Google Foo and say how to tell a story, and you'll find a bunch of different guides on how to set it up where you have your maybe it's a hero story, maybe it's a victim story, I don't know, but they encounter some challenges, they either succumb to or overcome those challenges, and it's resolved in some way at the end of the story. Maybe you leave that resolution open and people got to come see something bigger to figure out how it ended. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it sounds like there are people who've thought this through a lot deeper than I have. But it was kind of an interesting revelation to me when it really occurred to me. I mean, stories motivate people. I mean, that's really, unless you're holding a gun to someone's head or a knife to someone's throat or whatever, about to push them off a cliff. Unless there's a threat of physical violence, about the only way you can get someone to do something is motivate them through some sort of story.
Well, and is this coming from, because I know I've dealt with this, because I know in my podcast, I've dealt with the industry, and then I've dealt with, also the community aspect. And so what I've seen, and again, tell me if this is the avenue you kind of sort of you went down to your realization, is as you get more and more, and it doesn't happen super often, but as you get people on that are like a bump on a pickle, right? I mean, you constantly have to press them and push them, and it's like they're not the people that can take something and just run with it with anecdotes and stories and have a conversation, right? And so that's what I'm going back and thinking of when you said what you're talking about. I'm going, yeah, man, that's great. We need to be pulling those. And G Webs has pointed this out before. He said it over and over and over. And so it's like I bow down at the altar of G Webs to go, I think he's had this idea forever because he's like, you need to be pulling those clips out. You need to be pulling those clips out. And I think you're right. I think we
Yeah.
need to be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. When I sent out an invitation for anyone to come on the show, I added a couple weeks ago, there's a link in there to a YouTube video on how to tell good stories,
That's
just
good.
to encourage them to think before, when they get the invitation a week or 2 or 3 before the show. I hope they see that link and watch it and think about, well, wow, okay, I need to frame some stories about. In this case, it's generally we have brands on, so it's about their business and how they've done things. But it could very well be, you reframe this for whatever topic you want to talk about.
But we're not talking like a lecture series or like a bunch of quizzes or something. We're talking like some simple things, some like structure, some concepts, so that people can just have a direction to like an outline to start from, so that they can.
Sure.
Right.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to go to grad school and learn how to teach stories, that's on them. I just want to give them like a little 5 minute, some tips on how to make your stories more effective and engaging.
Right. And it may not even boil down to, like you said, like the bulk of this conversation has been about. It may not even boil down to your ability to tell a story, but your ability to package a story and echo it and amplify it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and
but
then once
then,
you know the elements of like how something works, then when you hear stories, you can have a better understanding. You can get persons, whether or not they're accidentally having all the elements, or maybe that was created, right?
well, yeah, and I think that one of the issues that this community has had is that people get too transactional. And I kind of felt when I joined the discussion, I heard some talk about there are people that are very set in, it's my right and that's it. Well, that's very transactional. This I have a goal for talking to you, and you know what it is because this is what I'm saying is this is my right, period. There's no discussion, there's no story, there's nothing. I mean, you got to give people something to emotionally invest in. And that real quick, hey, it's my right, period, there's nothing to talk about, really doesn't give any opportunity for that. I think that understanding how to tell a good story in that framework will help us as we run across things that would make good stories to figure out how to frame them appropriately. So, I mean, you can have 10 people watch the same thing happen and then ask them to describe it to you. And some of them are going to be inaccurate and some are going to be accurate, but they're going to bore you to death. And there will be one person out of that 10 that blows you away. And you're like hanging on every word, like, no, what happened next? And I think how you package and present those stories makes a big difference in how well they resonate with people. And if it doesn't resonate, you really don't have much chance of them changing their behavior. That's the whole idea here, right? Is we're trying to figure out how to awaken people to steal a Russell Brand concept. We want to awaken people that maybe hadn't thought of things in what we would consider to be the right way.
Or just even like that there's a way to think about it, right? Or like that it's something
Yeah.
to be thought about. Even some people just, I've never had my rights challenged, so I've never thought that people are out there defending them. It's just never come across my radar.
Well, like Brooke's story earlier about how she didn't vote. She didn't really see the point in it. That you got to get through to someone like that somehow. And
Well, and I was going to add that when you're describing that is pretty much a step-by-step, like, or at least a basic 3-point outline to kind of use as a reference, like, so, and why would you care? So that you could, when you discover something, you don't just leave a gold nugget laying around. If you're experiencing something or you're part of something, then at least you understand, hey, this is the kind of thing that becomes the element of a good story. I might not be interested in telling the story, but I know DJ is. Link, copy and paste, whatever, make a quick phone call or some, tag something, however it happens to be. But I was going to say that's for people that do want to participate, because it's a lot of fun and it's a adapting thing. It might not be fun tomorrow or yesterday, yesterday or today, but it could be fun tomorrow because, we'll have a new tech or a new platform or some new way of using our things. And that might be interesting for somebody. But no matter how or when you decide to jump in, it's like anything. It's once you start practicing it, once you become comfortable with it, you become better and more fluent in it. And I think there's value. I'm bringing this up because it's obvious. Everything takes practice in order to get better. But a lot of people, won't even get their foot wet because they don't want to look bad in front of people, or they think that somehow you should be polished before you get started. When you think about most of the people that I've experienced over the years in the time doing this, there's people come and go, and most people come in, either they figured it out already and they switched to guns, or they got it all figured out, went to school, something, and then turned it on with guns, or they were interested in guns and became interested in sharing stuff online and shared that, or just fumbled their way through that and then became really good. Go watch anybody's early videos. Nobody came except for the people that, turned from one topic to another and were already professional broadcasters and just changed the topic. And there are people out there, but that's one of those things, is that they're the alternative to just programmed, designed stuff or scripted stuff, is the people that are just doing their thing. And you can always just go backwards in their timeline unless they deleted their stuff and see how they progressed and how they got better. So because that exists and that encourages people to keep going, do that, be part of it. Like, just start putting your stuff up there, and you're always going to stumble and have awkward stuff. You're sharing that with the people that are going to come next, and look to that as a confidence builder that they can participate too. I mean, do you know anybody that was like, oh man, I waited until I was super good at this and then I started, and I'm so glad I waited until I was super good at this? Or is it the opposite, where people are like, oh, I thought I needed a microphone or a camera, and by the time I got here, I didn't even use the lights or the cameras or the tripod I thought I was going to use.
And geez, I really like what you just said there. And if someone thinks that their story is not a worthy one or a good one, they shouldn't count themselves out. The uniqueness of every story is going to be a unique one, and every story will appeal to someone else. There are a couple of comments out there in the text chat about how to present that perhaps as a web page. And something that I'll extend. It's an open offer. If folks want a little assistance, either with their verbal presentations or their written word, I'd be happy to dedicate my time to anyone who wishes to approach.
You just say, if anybody has an idea, you will turn it into a web page 100% for them. All you have to do is give you the idea, and you'll produce websites on the other side of that. Nice.
Not said that way. That the development of those stories, but out in the text chat, like the last comment from L3D, talking about a landing page on a website that's friendly to those that are 2A illiterate. And stories like the ones that might develop and be included in a site like that have a really unique opportunity to be able to appeal to someone who doesn't know all the kind of stories that we do, those archetypes, the kind of old saw sort of things. And there were some other comments out there in the text chat. I've been keeping track of them, but back to you.
I just want to jump in real quick off of something G-Webs just said, and it's a perfect segue for me as far as, like, did you have the right camera setup and the right lights and blah 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 with tripod or whatever. I've just been using my phone the entire time I've been coming online and jumping in these chats. So it's super easy. Jump on your phone, go on StreamYard or whatever, start recording a thing. And then the segue part of it is my phone's dying. So I have to jump out. But you guys have a good Every Second Matters and take it easy.
Later, Smeg.
Go easy, Smeg.
Take
Yeah,
it
I
easy,
do the same.
Smeg.
I do the same thing. Every appearance on any of G-Web's programs has been from a cellular phone with headphones and a drop mic. And it doesn't, I wish that people wouldn't be so self-concerned or so hesitant to share, because another part of this is, and it's something that part of what G was saying early, there's not only the uniqueness that I mentioned, but it's a moment in time. I mean, we have the opportunity, and I've taken a distinct advantage of that, going back and looking at YouTube videos from those developing 2A content, at the 2-year, 4-year, 6-year, 8 years back, and taking a look at some of those and how those things were presented, those stories were offered, those resources were discussed is really interesting. Having a historical perspective is a great one. Why not contribute to that history of 2A? And back to you guys.
And we're preaching to probably people that watch this stuff, right? I mean, I guess some people are going to find this, but as we all know, YouTube censorship is going to make it so that it'll never be found or whatever. But so somebody's old and figures their experience is useless because all the kids talk about their Wonder Nines and their CZ grip angles and their Turkish guns and whatever it is that kids are interested in these days. I would say it's worth the stories again. Recording some or having conversations at least, or at least participating in things like Gizzard Show, where there's conversations that are open to people that want to participate. Because I mentioned this earlier when I was kind of defending, I guess, the idea that new gun owners, anybody who's just started owning guns in the last 2000s, I'd say. So it's not like new, but like new for the rest of us that are super old and have been owning our guns our whole lives. The 80s and 90s were chaos. They were all over the place, and we had an assault weapons ban. And those people that live in California, I know, I live in one already. But the rest of us, we're minding our business, and in the California level, infringement hit us for 10 years. And that was, I'm going to keep using the word, made us gun shy of this whole idea of liberal and crossing around and compromise. That was a dirty word. It was a word that was hidden. It was an evil word or whatever, a word that was hiding goals and ambitions that were against us and all that kind of stuff. And they used that against us over and over. Look at the Gun Owners Protection Act. The one time that we were able to get, the NRA did it. But at one time they were able to get everybody together to fight the abuse of the ATF, being mean to gun shops and some of the other things that were happening. We got the Gun Owners Protection Act to reduce some of that infringement, and they threw in the stupid Hughes Amendment. So we know that, there's this history of abuse or whatever, but the problem is the new generation doesn't know. They may have listened to us rant about it, but they're not. They're not 2 hours into this listening to old people complain about stuff. So if you have the opportunity to, say that better than I just did, or get the point across, like Jeff was saying, tell a better story about it. That's the equivalent of a meme, isn't it? It's the equivalent of a blog post, being able to express an opinion through something that's more creative than just, stating it.
And sometimes it's a matter of being aware. I'm going to take that maybe and go a little different direction. So when you're talking about, even just a video on a random firearm or something that you might think, right? And you're out there and you're doing something like that, there's the potential to throw a tidbit in there about something. And I've done that with NFA. I've done that with the GCA. I've done that on several videos that and at first, when I was contemplating doing that particular video on that firearm or whatever the case may be, it really didn't come to my mind. But then as I was riffing and talking about it in front of the camera, I'm like, oh snap, this I can talk about how, this is a good teaching moment, how, when this was made, or, whatever the case may be, right? This was the, what was going on at the time. And so um, I think it's just a matter of being aware, no matter what content we're producing, right? And maybe knowing good storytelling elements and stuff like that, maybe that plays into it a little bit to be able to recognize. And Jeff Knox's opportunity, that was the word I was fixing to use, and I'm sure that's not what he meant for me, but provides us the opportunity to talk about something, right? Just in a fleeting moment that you have somebody's attention for something totally different. I mean, they logged on, they clicked to see something about whatever handgun or whatever it is. And now for a minute, for 30 seconds, for whatever, you know, maybe they didn't know that. And it could potentially spark interest that they do go follow up maybe and check that. Oh, that was interesting. Wonder why he brought up that I didn't know that was the case. And then so they go, use the Google food or whatever it might be and seek out more information on that. So curiosity, building curiosity can help too.
I'd call it awareness, but yeah, I think it's just the other side of it, right? Or a method of awareness, I guess.
Yeah.
Luke is saying we need people upset they are being lied to in the selling of their rights for less safety. I hear what you're saying, that for some people that message would work, but I know from listening to people and just from knowing some people in real life, not in chats or anything, but there's people out there that literally are down with that. So it's not like they're going to get upset about that ever. Like, you'd have to fundamentally change their core beliefs and stuff, but they really think, to some people, I'm not talking about, again, anybody I know online here, I'm talking about people I've met in real life before. And I don't know if they're still like this, but I'm talking like in the olden days when we had to actually talk to each other in real life at work and stuff. They just didn't, they just assumed that this stuff wasn't necessary, that we're beyond that. And I don't know if that's the same reasoning that they have today that they had back then, but back then they would think we've evolved past that because we haven't had any world wars, and we haven't, so before the global war on terror, to some extent, maybe even, yeah, it was. So some of these conversations are a while ago, but if people still have that opinion, and why wouldn't they, if that's never been challenged, then they're just thinking you're never going to get them to get upset about this or about that.
Right.
And that's why I just think, who said it? That's why we have a bunch of different things nibbling the cow. Who said that?
Rob, he was talking about how to eat an elephant one at a time. But if we set upon that elephant from all different angles, then it might go down faster.
You take the elephant, and you can only bite an elephant one bite at a time, but you wing it into an Amazon river with a bunch of piranhas, and they're all taking their one bite, but there's a swarm of them.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Or you just talk about nature in general, whether you're talking about wolves or lion or
you just
whatever
starve a bunch of fat kids and you just let them go.
Poor elephant. Hope there's at least an air fryer involved.
All right. Well, we may have just solved 2A, gentlemen.
Well, we definitely got talking points from today. If someone were to have written them down, I guess you could technically go through and snag stuff from the comments. These things could be done a different way if someone wanted to really make progress. If you were having something where you were trying to accomplish a goal and you had some, strategy to get to that goal, you would probably have meetings like this with keeping some kind of notes, and then, keeping data or something. And there's nothing stopping people from doing that. I don't think these chats are necessarily set up that way, but Every Second Matters could become a way to archive something. Group of people that want to put effort into something. That's one of the ambitions typically of people that want to see change and aren't satisfied with the mechanisms set in front of them. Like, hey, vote, or hey, lobby, or hey, what else is there? Give money to an organization, or hey, rally. Some people are interested in doing more or alternatives to those things because they've got, either frustration or ambivalence to their usefulness. That's why, like I say, there's that's what Every Second Matters is all about. It's not lobbying. Now, I don't think, I know because I was sitting around when it happened, nobody really was thinking about this concept of like, I don't know who came up with it. Who really came up with the, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I don't know if that's like Art of War or something like that. But that concept, the Every Second Matters isn't just like, hey, let's work on lobbying, or hey, let's work on which organization to support or something like that, or let's focus on any individual thing, because I don't think anybody thought there was a specific thing that would work. And I think that was a result of, at the time, at the end of 2013, nothing had done it. It was all, we were scratching our heads and kind of going, wow, like no one saw this coming at the beginning of the year. And how do you support something that wasn't one thing, that wasn't 3 or 4 things that could easily be documented?
Yep.
All right. Well, am I beating a dead horse?
Yeah.
Get it? Or should we keep going? It's about right at 2 hours. We could end it, I guess, or we could keep going. There's people out there. We've had a good conversation going so far. I'm sure that I interrupt because I don't care. I've been doing chats too long. Plus, I'm hosting this one, but I'm sure most people were polite and trying not to interrupt. So if there was anything that might have been addressed before, one of my things is I'll just leave a comment, and sometimes my comments look kind of random and weird. It's because I'm leaving a note to myself I didn't want to interrupt or whatever. So if anybody's got anything from stuff we addressed earlier, that means people out there watching, as well as folks here in the chat. If you're listening and you have an invite, I send the invite out to maybe 40 people or something. Feel free to jump in. We don't necessarily turn it off until, well, I'm not going to turn it off. My hard turn off would be whenever my other next show starts, which is still 2 hours from now. So I could run it till then, or we can shut up right now. Let me know, and we'll do that.
Well, I'm going to need to check out. And this is I don't know that I've been on this one before. I enjoyed the warm welcome of Gear Report's here. How'd he get in here? And
Guilty.
And I say that humorously. I haven't done a great job of engaging with the 2A side of what we do at Gear Report, and it's something I'm trying to think about how to incorporate it kind of more organically in what we're already doing a bit more. I mean, we do so much gun stuff. We just don't do it in terms of, it's not a transactional. We have some sort of 2A goal that we're gonna set aside 4 hours to work towards achieving that goal. I mean, we're doing a lot of gun related stuff. But I appreciate someone sneaking me a link so I could be a part of this, and letting me kind of soak it all in for a while and kind of get my head in the right space to really participate. And I mean that as a member of the panel, but on the larger level, trying to be a little bit more effective in the 2A community as well. I think this has been very beneficial to me being here and participating in this to give me some ideas to think about and how to try to move the needle in the 2A space as well. So thanks for letting me be a part of this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, right on. You definitely contributed a lot. When I set these things up, I send it out. I go grab the old blind carbon copy list, and then I usually weed through that list and go, I've invited this person 17 times and they didn't show up, or this person asked, so I'm editing the list or whatever, because I'm concerned that if I just continue to add to it, one, I'll accidentally not blind copy and I'll give everybody has addresses that I've ever known. But then, just so I'm not bothering people that aren't going to show up or whatever.
Sure.
So I thought, since you showed up, I'm like, oh crap, did I copy and paste the wrong list into the thing?
Right.
So I went and looked or whatever. No, I don't care. I will send you a link if you're interested in showing up. Because like I say, I appreciate it. And that's what it's all about, is bringing different perspectives and different skill sets to the mix. And I don't know how fast you got to jump out of here, but a lot of the people that are in this game are in it for whatever reasons, right? The fundamental reasons, but they didn't come to it with a set of skills that were prerequisites, so they don't know how to do things. And we might, depending on if Clovers feels like it, we might take some time here to go do some critiques, because there's some basic use of the mechanisms online that the advocates need that we have fallen out. Like, I've forgotten more stuff about certain things that some of these folks don't even realize they don't even link to their own webpage on their YouTube channel. Let's put it like that. Like, some of these people have some basic stuff that they need, and having some workshops and being able to get that across, having those, your kind of skills and your experience with industry and the community, it's definitely a valued asset. So yeah, I'll definitely include you from now on.
And the other thing about Jeff is Jeff crosses over into, we're always talking about that, he crosses over into the military vehicle really heavily in a lot of other spaces. It's gear report, right? It's not gun report. So
yeah, and we just took the outdoor out of our tagline. It used to be Trusted Outdoor Gear Reviews since 2009. Now it's just Trusted Gear Reviews, so we can do whatever. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that. Well, no, I'll tell you where I was going to go, and then why I said no. It doesn't make sense. I participated in a Army military training exercise last week, and was driving around with Special Forces guys in my Humvee and a machine gun on top, and they were firing blanks, but we're driving through town, assaulting buildings, and it was a real town in North Carolina that they just knew there are going to be things happening, and don't freak out when you hear gunfire. And I was thinking, well, that's a pretty pro-gun thing, but no, it wasn't, because it was not civilians armed. It was, military driving around in town with machine guns. So yeah, never mind. That's why I kind of walked that one back a little bit. But we do a lot of gun stuff, where it was coming from. All right. Well, I've had family members poke their head in my office about 9 times since I've been on. So I got to go see what all they need from me. Thanks again for letting me be here. Really appreciate it. You're welcome to include me on invitations or not moving forward. That's completely up to you. It's really, really rare that the stars align and I'm able to hop on something. I just happened to stumble on that opportunity this evening. I wasn't supposed to be here and available, but something changed and I was able to. So when I'm able to, I'll absolutely jump in, but it'll be few and far between.
Right on. Well, that last point is, again, something that is a good part, or one of the reasons we did it on the 2nd, as opposed to, I think one of them, if you listen to the first chats, the debate was to have it on the 2nd Tuesday or something like that, so that it was a consistent day. So anyway, the whole point was so that it would be a more random day of the week for opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, so Echo and DJ are still in here. They haven't said much, I'm guessing, so that other people could do their thing. But again, if you guys had something that you were biting your tongue or just waiting for the opportunity, being polite, I don't run polite chats. I've been doing chats for too long, and I grew up where people just talk. And I don't preface it either. I guess I should have probably tell people that at the beginning, but they figure it out after a few years of watching my stuff. But if you guys were trying to hold back or had any points, feel free to bring them up. I don't like to just plow through it.
No, gee, I was listening and paying attention to what everybody had to share. I do a series of interviews on my channel, as well as a lot of other people do, and all trying to tell some kind of a story of how someone got behind the trigger or behind the press handle for the first time, and their experiences with the Second Amendment community for the first time. What was your impression? And most people tell me, like 9 out of 10 people say, everybody I bet involved in the gun community are really number one people. So I just like hearing the stories and listening to y'all, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's always a pleasure to be around you guys.
I know. Well, I'm glad you jump in, because too many people don't. You know what I mean? They just, they'll watch these things and then just, sit in the seats. We don't know they're there or nothing. So being part of it, jumping in, and then putting in your 2 cents when you feel like it, it's awesome.
Yeah, I just like to leave everybody. Once a really wise man said, if you trade an ounce of liberty for safety, you don't deserve either. And that was Abraham Lincoln. So go out on that for me.
I thought you were going to say something like, if you trade an ounce of lead for anything else, it's crazy.
Right now, yes, you would be.
Anyway, so I was looking around. I was watching the Second Amendment Foundation's thing. I mean, if nobody's going to say anything, I was watching the Second Amendment Foundation's podcast earlier, the Polite Society thing, I guess. And DJ wasn't there, so I was doing the DJ role of dropping in links for everybody. So, I'm going to drop links. I got some links on Minuteman, but if it's easier, just go to a browser and type in CCDL and then gun, and then it'll bring up the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. It's 2 clicks instead of however many clicks it would take me to get through it on my own site. So I was also using the method of just clicking on the YouTube thing and jumping over to their YouTube channel, because a bunch of the channels that I'm linking to are just in my subscription list anyway. So I would open up their YouTube channel in an attempt to see their website link up in the banner of their YouTube channel, like 99% of people do, or jump over to their About page and get the link to their channel or their website from their About page, where everybody else puts it, if they don't put it on their banner. And, well, as I mentioned a minute ago, like most of them don't even have their own links on their own channels and stuff. It's like they set up their YouTube channel the same way I set up my Facebook channel.
You're talking about Second Amendment Foundation, right?
Oh, no, I'm talking, well, yes, but also, like a lot of them, like DC Project doesn't have a link to their own website on their own channel.
I hear you. I've got, but to get specific for a second, right? Call this channel audit, whatever. I pulled it up just to take a look, and Second Amendment Foundation to be Second Amendment Foundation. And for anybody out there that might be listening to this, that especially if you donate to the Second Amendment Foundation, send them some messages or email and tell them to get with it on their YouTube channel. Like, seriously, for as much as they want to complain about Zuckerberg, they throw way too much weight into, or way too many eggs into that basket, and they're way behind the curve on YouTube. Their YouTube channel page is disgraceful. And I'm not talking about the views, and I'm not talking about the subscribers. I'm talking about with the professionalism and the way it looks. G alluded to no link to the website, obviously, but the cover art, it's not captivating. They're not promoting better episodes and having their shelves on their homepages populated or anything like that. If I go over here, a great opportunity to link to Charlie and Tony and everybody else. They're not utilizing their channel tab. They're not utilizing their community tab, which could be engagement with their YouTube audience and posting updates and other things. So, I mean, I don't mind saying it. I mean, they're way behind the curve, and it's disgraceful for an organization that big to be that far behind on this.
And I just noticed that I'm unsubscribed. So YouTube something. Oh no, why? Because I'm on Every Second Matters. Okay, so Every Second Matters was not subscribed. So I was like, why is it taking me so long to find the dang site? So you're looking at it right now, Clover?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to name the one that I am not happy with. So go ahead and look at that channels, the one from Colorado. Look at their channel and everything you just said with a fire under it, because they can't just keep sitting around, because the unscrupulous exploiters, look what they did, and tell me what you think of theirs now.
I'm not subscribed to them, but I will say this: they're leaps and bounds ahead
Right.
of them for as
Right.
far as the subscribers go. And part of that reason is it's beautiful. They
Right.
are knocking it out of the park. Their thumbnails are amazing. Their titles are amazing. They've
It
got
almost looks like they're credible, right? It looks like they should
yes,
have credibility because of the way they
they
look.
are
And it's
they
the
are
opposite.
doing everything I said Second Amendment is not.
And
Everything.
how do we get that to them? Because they're not
I
going to
don't know.
listen to hour 2.5 of this, and they don't listen to me because they think I don't like them. And how
I
do
don't
we
know.
explain to them that they're losing to the people who are the end? Not, you know what I mean? Like the people
Yeah,
that are
no, I get you.
unscrupulous and taking
Well,
16 million.
they're losing potential audience, period. It has nothing to do with losing to another organization. I mean, that's the
Well, no,
thing.
but I'm only saying that because that happened in the last 2 months. That has happened since Crump got fired for addressing it. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to bring up the fact that happened, but you know what I'm saying? That's happened since. So they know that they're under the microscope because everyone doesn't just obliviously give them $16 million. Well, I guess those people are, but the rest of the people understand that that's happening, and they changed that. So they reacted. That's what's kind of got me. Like I say, I'm saying
when I can have professional thumbnails made for me, and I'm a blind guy that lives off disability. Come on now.
And it's not breaking your bank. It's not like you're going into debt because
it's not. There is literally single-digit kids, right, that are populating their channels and making them look good. So it's not like it's difficult to do. So it's not like
it
you're
just
going,
needs to be an effort they take up. It just needs to be done. It has to be, the decision has to be made to do it and then follow through. And like you just said, they got the opportunity to help so many people with that. And it's not just Second Amendment Foundation. We're complaining about their presence on YouTube, but it's probably their presence on all the platforms because I don't know them and assume it's like that on all of them. They're just there. And it's not just them because it's every organization for the most part, except for the one we're talking about that's assholes. And then GOA is fine. And FPC, nothing you can do. FPC is playing to the skinny kids, the skinny jeans kids with the the plaid shirts and the weird beards. So like, sorry, excuse me, beardists, but the kids with the beards, that's the shaved beards or whatever they call them, kid beards nowadays. But you know what I'm saying? Like the FPC isn't going to ever hit the FUD audience. They're not trying to. They're never gonna. But they don't matter. They're won $2 million, and they're so much more ahead of the game with their $2 million a year. $2 million or something like that is what FPC is making. Just a couple of $1 million. All the rest of them are 16 million plus. So we're talking budgets. It's not budget. It's not ability. It's just goal, right? It's just the intent to do it. And most of them are just blowing it off because they don't see it as being necessary or important.
FPC, I pulled them up, more subscribers than either of the former two we talked about. And they're halfway in between as far as what they're doing, as far as making sure their channel is populated and set up as conducively as possible. So they're in between the other two we mentioned. So there's still room for improvement under channels, definitely community tab with engagement there, thumbnails, and the way that their homepage is set up. That being said, they do have some shelves populated on the homepage, which is good. It looks like they're mainly their little podcast things, whatever they do, they've got up there, which is great. And it shows because they're getting the traffic on those.
The 2A Media Workshops is what I was hoping to do, and we'll eventually get that. I've been able to get that idea across to more and more people over time. It's just taken freaking 4 years or whatever to finally get to where they understand what I'm trying to explain. But that's, the next step from that is once they're aware that it's something that they can address, they don't even have to devote resources. And in fact, I would suggest they don't devote resources to it, even though they could pay to have something done. Whatever you pay to have done is going to be something, right? You're going to pay to have it done in blue, or you're going to pay to have it done in green. But you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to make some decisions along the way. And very rarely is a decision going to appeal to everybody. So instead, I'd say there's opportunity for any project, but specifically the Second Amendment focus, gun owners' rights focus groups, to say to their group, to their audience, not their audience, but their membership, right? Because these are organizations that have memberships. Say, hey, who out there wants to participate? Who would like to be part of the, make a meme for us this month. Every Monday we make memes. Every Tuesday we focus on something. Every Wednesday we do this, and then get crowd participation to create. And then when you feature somebody else's art, one, you're appealing to a much more variety, right? You're getting way more stuff out there, diverse, whatever the stupid word you're supposed to use to mean, like, you're disco balling it instead of a one mirror, right? You're giving everybody a reflection, and that disco ball lets people go, oh, look what else is out there. Because echo chambers or choirs, was it preaching to the choir? You get the same song all the time. But if you go listen to the radio or, listen to something on shuffle, you're going to get all kinds of diverse. You're going to get all kinds of different new ideas and stuff. So I think that they have an opportunity to get the effort done with a bunch of people, make attention to their whole effort, and who, if you win the thing of the month or you're the meme of the month, you're going to show your friends, right? So your reach is going to improve. You create a community amongst your membership, and the amount of time and effort you might have spent to put one person to go spruce up the website, you say to that one person, go run a team of people to keep the website active and current and thriving. You know what I mean? That's just another element to your community or project that can grow and evolve. But we'll see if anybody listens to that part. Or get people into conversations like this on a regular basis, people that are creative and want to accomplish tasks and are self-starters and motivated on their own, can hear what's necessary. Like, hey, we need this, we need that. I've put out the call before, hey, do people want to record the outro to my videos so that, it's not just us saying it all the time. It's different people. And people have, done that. They've contributed. And when we share that and we link to their site, it's cool.
Have you ever played mine?
I just barely got yours, and I only edit in batches. So actually, I just did. Woods also sent me one, and the thing is, he sent me a video. I think, did you send me a video? You gave me a video. Other people give me audio, right? Like, so it's not like I don't say, hey, give it to me XYZ packaging so that I can unwrap it and do something with it. So I kind of figure out what to do.
Yeah, I just sent you a link so you could rip it or whatever.
I already have it though, and I took it, but the other thing is you did it in a different way where you made it available on your channel. So you could just as easily have done one for your own channel or for Ghost or for somebody else, and then anybody could grab it. That's the whole point.
No, it's it's unlisted. Only you have the link to that.
Well, okay, but that specific one. But I mean that concept. Anybody can make little plugs for each other or for their own stuff or for other people's projects. Yeah. Post them on your own channel as a playlist. Even make them shorts. Except for the shorts, you have to hold them in stupid old up and down fashion. But otherwise, make little quick videos for people, and then people go, "Oh, cool! Now how Foss gets stuff for Gizzard. I'll play Foss's Gizzard stuff on my channel because it's cool as hell, right? It's promoting both of them then.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
also promoting each other with community tabs.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about that. So that's kind of what Clover was just talking about. But the I thought you were saying channel tab, the community tab. So making posts about each other's whatever, a live event or upcoming video or whatever poll or something.
Yep.
I think a lot of people do that, but people that haven't figured that out, that is just something that's probably the easiest thing on YouTube to do. I would say, as far as like interacting with YouTube, other than setting up the channel, which is kind of necessary. But if you're going to do nothing else with your channel, you never have to upload anything. You could just have an active community tab and become a massive, useful entity, right?
Just share
marketing.
Stuff,
Oh yeah.
Well, you've got to get
a hub or a threshold or something, or a bridge, like you'd call it.
Well, you're going to have to create some kind of content at some point to get the 500 subscribers to be able to get the community tab. But yeah.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. But with very little effort as far as things go, you wouldn't have to put, and you could literally, there's some strategies for that. If you really wanted to just race to a community tab, that'd be an interesting thing. I'm sure people talked about it, but that'll change over time because YouTube will change. But yeah, there's ways to, if your goal is to get to monetization, if your goal is to get to reach, if your goal is to get to numbers, a little bit different recipe, a little bit different tweak. And then, once you even kind of know the tack to take or the route to take, you still got to lick your finger and hold it up to the wind and see where it's actually blowing, because what might be perfect in an election year don't work when it ain't an election year, or what might be perfect when people are calm don't work when they're stressed out, or vice versa, right?
Right.
500 channel friends. What does that mean? What's a channel friend? Hey, channel friend.
Not sure.
Subscribers.
Oh, you only have 500 subs? What?
I only have 580.
Oh, see, y'all need to tell people too. So if there's people sitting around without enough subs to do stuff, oh, I'm on Every Second Matters no matter. I don't see anybody. I have people in here you've never heard of before. I'm going to make a thing here. I was just about to look for G23. How many does he have?
395. He's getting there. He's close.
Holy shit, 395. Oh no, we'll get you to 500, dude. I had no idea. I just assumed everybody's sitting happy with their subs because nobody's bitching. If you're not happy with your subs, squeak. Like, be the squeaky wheel. You've got channels with lots of subs and people that pay attention to them. Let people know. Talk about, come on. You just haven't seen what happens when people need subs before. But yeah, let people know. Don't do anything stupid.
We don't like to sound like we're begging for it, though. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no, I'm talking about people that are posting and people that are participating. Yeah, if some dude's just like, hey, you've never heard of me before, but I want 1,000 subs. Well, good luck. I want, all the tea in China or whatever he used to say.
He's like, I want a Maserati.
Yeah. Well, somebody's efforting. Like G23 has been on the clock for years. I had no idea that he was sitting there. I didn't think he's never said anything. Is all I'm saying. I just didn't realize that that's the thing. But anyway, I'm just saying I don't look at anybody's sub count.
We're going to get you back on my channel here shortly to do a rerun of your interview when you're there at the house. So plan on that here shortly.
Since G23 is out there, let me throw some helpful advice, something he needs to think about. I probably mentioned this to him before, but I could not be any more deadly serious G23 than I am right now. You really, really, and at this point, sooner than later is usually the time to do it. You need to consider a name change. You can keep the G23. You need to add something to it. You need to mix it up because you're getting buried with other channels named G23. It's too short. It's just too generic. You've got to get something a little more specific in there. And so it's something to reflect on and think about and type some things into the search and make sure it's not super saturated. But
it's G23 reviews. He just changed his view to G23. So he could put it back to G23 reviews.
Yeah, but he's not doing reviews though, right?
Oh, well, you want him to also now all of a sudden be actually talk about what he's doing or whatever.
Yeah, but he doesn't. You don't want a different channel. You don't want a channel name that says reviews unless you're actually doing reviews.
No, I hear you. Although
he's doing a lot of live streams more than anything.
I hear you.
And interviews. So maybe G23 interviews or something like that. Or I don't know. It's something like I said. He needs to reflect on. I'm not the one to sit here and tell him what name to pick. I certainly can't tell you the golden egg of names, but I can tell you just from typing it into search and then having to go and actually search channels, and then there being 50 freaking channels named G23 that he's
he knows. We've had this discussion. You had this
discussion with it. Yeah.
I've got a little bit of skill in marketing. I will work with you on something if you want some help. And so will Clover, and so will G, I'm sure.
Yeah. And he can keep the logo. The logo's beautiful.
Yeah.
Keep the logo.
Just add something to it. That's all you'd have to do, and do it real artistically, but yet professional, so that it looks like it was original.
Yeah, you could be cheeky with it. You could, whatever.
Used to be G23.
Well. Yeah.
G23 2.0.
Oh, wow.
So I don't remember where we were going. I think I was at one point going to say that when Echo was talking about the community tab, I thought he was talking about the channel tab, but did we finish talking about the community tab?
I think so.
So then the channel tab is also one that's I've been playing with because I just spruced up a couple of the channels to make them not look like a mess, I guess, or at least a more organized mess. And you can fiddle with your, what's that called? Your channel tab, I guess. I don't know. I think I don't. My channels aren't all the same. So Every Second Matters is tiny, and I was able to adjust it. But you can have subscriptions and favorite channels. So you can have a shelf, they're called, with channels you decide. So you can, like, for Every Second Matters, I have a channel shelf that's the people that started the whole project. On my own channels, I have a shelf or a line in the page where, like a section in the template, where I just have my own projects, and then another one for channels that I subscribe to, right? And then you can have another one yet of favorite channels that you subscribe to. So you can, you can consider your channel a useful resource. So I don't know how many people are jumping onto the internet for the first time, but at some point you jumped onto YouTube for the first time. And when you did, unless somebody was literally standing right there, you had to go find wherever it was somebody told you. Or even if they gave you a direct link to something, you started to navigate around. And as you start to navigate around, at least I think this is the progression based on years of doing this, that you're going to go to somebody's channel, especially on a social platform like YouTube where this is all available, and you're going to click on their channel tab and you're going to see who they subscribe to. And on other platforms where you can see, and I guess on YouTube it's either toggled on and off, you can click the people who subscribe to the channel. That's how people usually find their initial group of channels to follow or pay attention to, right? I guess some people might go in there and specifically search for every individual thing, knowing what they want. But I think most people kind of browse around. So if you think of that, what's the word? Like that kind of procedure or whatever, that's the way that people welcome or join a site and look around, then your channel tab, your links to other channels is vital. When a person comes into your community and starts to look around and you got an empty channel tab, you've basically said, this social platform can go to hell. I don't really like that many people here, and I don't even have the respect to link to them, even if they link to me. Now, there's a ton of people that link to me. I'm a giant channel, and I definitely don't link to everybody. But at the same time, if there's somebody like Echo who's running a live conversation, just to keep the conversation going with no ulterior motives or whatever, I'm definitely going to want to link to that, because I want people that find my channel to go, I want them to find that kind of stuff. So your community or your channel tab, I keep calling it community tab, your channel tab is like your recommendations. So, and some people don't keep that current. Some people don't pay attention to it. And the worst is when it's empty. But anyway, I'll shut up.
Mine's got quite a few, and it's got interviews with those channels, so you can go cross-reference and actually go and find out what that channel is about and watch the interview. And so I need to get you behind the microphone. Gee, did we lose you?
Oh, no, sorry, I'm eating over.
What are you eating?
Chocolate. Come on.
Oh.
This happens to be a dark chocolate, salt, and almond. So it's like,
that sounds pretty good.
Salt in there. It's okay. It's kind of too much like a candy bar for me. I'd rather just eat a chunk of dark chocolate, but it's kind of like a candy bar, I guess.
Yeah, you got me. Kind of got the munchies.
And the time has come for me to dip, gentlemen. Gee, thank you so much for the invitation. I enjoyed the program, and as I bounce out
hearing dark chocolate, and like, I'm out.
But the munchies have arrived. Thanks, G. But yeah, thanks for the opportunity, G. And Echo, Clover, guys, have a great night. See you next month.
Yes, sir.
Later.
All right. So with that, we're at the 2.5 hour mark. Like I say, I keep going, or we can end it. We've got people out there. Some people are having conversations. But getting back from a counseling G23, I would say G23, make a show where you bring people on and brainstorm all that. for sure. And
Yep.
then, but to get it back to where we were, I think we were kind of just like talking about the concept of the channels not using their full potential, to bring that out of scope or whatever, like bring that up a level and elevation or whatever. Platforms too, like the platforms people are choosing to use is completely at random, and I'm going to say at this point manipulated. This whole like jump to Twitter is frustrating as hell, only because, but 2019, I'm trying to even remember it all now, or was it 2020? This all happened at the same time. I guess it was 2020 when was Trump removed from Twitter, and then everybody was like, "Oh, we have to leave all platforms," and there was this like mass exodus. And whenever that happens, it's like, all right, people are jumping ship, but are you jumping into a lifeboat? Are you jumping into the water? Are you jumping in top of somebody's
Right.
neck? What's going on here? And people just all left. And the problem is when you just leave and you don't leave and like leave or leave with some other caveat, then everybody just disperses and effectively your community is dissolved, right? Your community is lacking. So knowing ahead of time that no platform's perfect, it seems like Clover and I kind of had these conversations before, but knowing that no platform's perfect, you can diversify the same way you would with your money or with your food preps or with your ammunition caliber choices, right? You're going to have a little bit of a couple of things that are useful, and maybe they even accomplish different tasks so that you're covering bases as you're covering your base or whatever, as you're doubling down. So, you know where I'm going with that? Like we're focused on YouTube here, but we could just as easily focus on choice of platforms or amount of effort. Do we bring people to other platforms or do we look for people on the other platforms? Again, when you start to think about, oh, there's so much complexity, there's so much things to do. Why does it have to be the old fashioned one organization has to have one person who calls the shots and then manage, have a couple of managers that have employees that do all the work, when it could just as easily be the same volunteer or a crowd efforted system that you would have at a rally or to organize, I don't know, like a campaign at a bunch of different gun shops or at a bunch of ranges, like when they did the child safe. That wasn't like we just hire a bunch of people to say child safe. No, they encouraged people to participate in their own. So how do we, I'll shut up and quit repeating myself now. How do we, or is there something to talk about with the multiple platforms, I guess?
I think the biggest thing with the multiple platforms is to get people to understand. I think that's part of Second Amendment Foundation's issue with all their eggs basically being in that Facebook basket. And Facebook is the number one platform now, anyway. That Elon has bought Twitter. That's in a whole different category now. But all eyes are on Facebook and Zuckerberg, and everybody hates them and da. But yet they've got and they want to complain about that, but yet all of their eggs are in that basket. But what we have to get across to folks like that are single platform centric or whatever the case may be is, you need a presence anywhere and everywhere. I'm all for a presence. That doesn't mean that you work that platform, you spend hours every week or hours every day or even hours every month on that platform, but at least have a presence there. And most of the time, if you have a presence there, if you notice traffic starting to pick up, you're going to get notifications, you're going to get emails that somebody commented, you're going to, something's going to happen. So have that presence, and then you can feel things out and you can start to tell really quickly, okay, I get a younger crowd on this platform. I get an older crowd on this platform. I get a more 2A centric crowd on this platform. I get people that care more about revolvers on this platform. I get people that are from a totally different country, right, on this platform. And you can start tailoring then the content you post, the replies that you make, the whatever it is, the social media post, if it's a because we're talking platform, it could be a non-video or audio centric platform, of course, a social media platform. The type posts you make, things like that, right? And you can learn to custom tailor that a little better for that particular platform, because every platform has its, yeah, I mean, there's tons and tons of crossovers, millions and millions of users that crossover that use multiple platforms, sure, but all platforms have their lane and their niche as far as demographics. And so for each creator, for each person and your goals and who you're trying to reach, you know that's going to be different. So that's something that you definitely need to be paying
Well,
attention to and looking into. And you can't do that if you don't have a presence at the very least.
I'm going to twist that a little bit, but I don't want to keep dominating. If Echo wants to throw something in there, and Weston had a good point. If nothing else, grab
Yeah.
your name on these
Yeah.
platforms. That's always a good idea.
Yeah. You
But
suggested that to me a while ago about getting the Gmail. You're like, because I wasn't using it, and you really need to do that. And that's been a blessing because now all of my other email basically all forwards to the Gmail, and it's easy to manage. So thank you for that suggestion and pushing me to that. And Weston is absolutely right.
I guess all of my mods left. Or do we
Working.
have mods over here?
Somebody got it. I was working on it, but
Okay. I don't even think that I'm on a channel that doesn't have a bunch of mods, probably.
I can't believe it. 2 hours and 40 minutes we haven't had that but once. But yeah.
I don't know
Anyway.
what the bait or what the blood in the water is that they need to smell. You know what I mean? It's probably tags, maybe. I didn't really put too many tags on here. It might be the channel's so old and little. I don't know. But my big channel gets fewer things than Paul does. Paul will say stuff to him, so he's like antagonizing him. Now, I guess I was going to say, just to kind of, I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying, but just to challenge it in a different way or to nudge it a different way or maybe have it look at it upside down or something. What you're talking about, as you described it, it seems like the description you'd give to someone like a person or a company maybe that's got a project or a channel or something that they're trying to start. Where with the organizations, if I was given advice to, or when I mansplain to the national level organizations who need to step it up, and to the potential new or next at the at whatever level, but an organization focused on our rights, I would say not the next, because I guess I'm talking more established organizations, but the next if it's growing at any rate, right? And the next ones already know this, but what I was going to get at is instead of just having the presence, or in addition to just having the presence, I really do think they need to be participating on each of the platforms at least for a year, or like some amount of time. That could be debated on if it's a year or if it's 8 months or if it's 3 months, but some amount of time, not because you need to go there. When you're talking about is fishing, I'm going out there to see what I can catch. I'm going to throw out some bait. I might change my bait. I might decide if the bait that I need here isn't the bait I like to fish with, right? So you're going to make decisions based on the information you get, and then you're going to decide. Where with these organizations, their goal is really reach and awareness, right? So they should be on all the platforms, period. They should be participating on all of them because that's really their goal. That's the kind of their obligation, I should say, because they're supposed to be doing that. Like, it doesn't matter if you like it or not. You're supposed to be on all of them.
Be on broadcast, basically.
Huh?
Be on broadcast, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Not like, oh, I like NBC, so let's only make shows for NBC. Like, no, you kind of need to be on all of them or whatever. That's a bad example. But yeah, you need to be everywhere because you don't know where the next person you need to reach is. But then I guess I was just going to add that, again, going back to my idea that there's opportunity there. Now, first off, we're talking about organizations that bring in somewhere between $12 and $16 million a year. So it's not like I don't have any problem mansplaining them a budget, right? Because they're paying somebody for something, right? Everybody's got some budgets here, and that's fine. I mean, we have money, so I'm not complaining. But either pay somebody, a lot of people, to run these things so that there's like maybe not a person per platform, but at least like no more than 3 platforms per individual. And I don't mean like intern, do it if you know what you're doing. I mean like your job is to make that platform be effective for our organization and our goals here. And again, I don't care if I like TikTok or whatever the other one is, or Instagram or Facebook. I hate Facebook. But if I was running a national level organization, I would find somebody who freaking passionately loves Facebook and understands our position, and I would make sure that we have a Facebook page that accomplishes what we would need to be doing, right? I don't do that because I hate Facebook, and I personally am doing just Facebook. I'm a national level organization, right? So I'll just mansplain that at them, that they're either missing an opportunity and maybe even an obligation to be on these platforms. Only because if they're not, or when they're not, they're missing people who they need to reach, right? And the others, the one we just looked at there, and they're assholes and they're unscrupulous. So they're gonna go it because to them it's just another dollar, and they could care less about the platform. To them, it's a wide open playing field where they can just keep. That's probably where they make their 16 million, is on all the platforms that are being ignored by the ones that are valid, right?
Right.
I mean, at least that's what I'm assuming. And I guess we're saying social platforms, but at the same time, we could be saying things like old-fashioned things. Like there is value in having like a pop-up tent with somebody sitting in it. There's value in having things that go out in the mail. There's value in having something on the bulletin board at a gun shop. There's value in having volunteers show up at gun shows and sit at a table or whatever, right? Like, and the people that are new and think that none of that works are, again, just what's the word? They're not even paying attention to the fact of like everything that's come before that established where we're at now, and they're taking that for granted, I guess is what I say. Right? That that's how we got to where we're at. People sitting in front of the sporting goods store with a table because the manager of the sporting goods store went beyond policy and said, "Yeah, set up your table there, either for this candidate or more than likely, to stop this, from shutting down our shooting areas, or to stop this bill from making universal background checks mandatory or something like that." Right.
But you were right. You were right earlier when you were talking about giving things time too. That's a mistake I see a lot of people make. They make two mistakes. Number one is they will do something, whether they do some changes on YouTube or whether they join a new platform, whatever the case may be, and they don't see immediate results, like within a day or two, and they flip out. I see that constantly.
Well, that was me.
with
Somebody did
YouTube.
say that. I don't remember who
So,
said it, but I want to take credit. But that was a great point earlier.
So, yeah, no, you were spot on. So I recommend simply because I'm fairly YouTube centric, and YouTube uses that 28-day cycle. That 4 week, 1 month thing. Flesh things out for that long. Give it a few weeks, and then also one thing that I recommend, because I've had this happen with me, is go back occasionally every few months or whatever. Go back and revisit some of the things that you've written off. You're like, oh, that's crap, it's not working, I'm not going to spend any more time than I have to there. Go back and revisit it, because I've had a few platforms that they made upgrades, they made changes, things have happened, maybe the user base has grown. I don't know why things have gotten different or went different over there, but I went back over there and started doing things, and I got a completely different result from it, right? And so you got to realize all these platforms, they evolve, they change ownership, people upgrade, they add new software layers, they add new features, they do different things. And so what doesn't work for you today, 6 months, 8 months, a year from now, that platform may be a viable option for you at that point. So don't discount things and just write them off completely because they don't work right out of the gate. That's what I'm saying.
That's a good point. And also, I guess if you were trying to say this, maybe I'm just didn't hear this, but I'm gonna say also like for whatever reason, like trends or tastes, or people were paying attention to something else.
Mhm.
It happened with Echo. Actually, Echo's in here. I was typing into the side chat the other day when I think it was your chat, and AR was typing for you or something, and I had typed in there, "Hey, please thank Echo for relaying that information about Dead Horse," right? Because I appreciated that, and just as AR was saying that to you, you had said something, right? And I don't know if you heard it or not, but on my end, it sounded like you guys over talked each other, and then the chat was booking, and it just went on, and I wasn't going to be like, in the way the chat was working, there was nothing I could do about it. It just happened. But then later on in the chat, because I was aware of that, I went ahead and posted again, just in case that first time was lost communication or whatever. So there's that, right? Like sometimes things just don't get heard, and just copy and pasting, like literally just reposting, or I've done this like just because I'm bored or whatever, like something comes up. Like if I see enough people bug me about an old video, I'll just repost the video. Like some of my old videos were made in Microsoft, whatever software, the free Microsoft software, and YouTube hates Microsoft, so they would squish my videos, and people would, that was 9 years ago, and then 17 years later, people are like, "Hey, this video squished," and instead of saying whatever, it's a 17-year-old video, I'll just download it, re-upload it, and then not have it squished, and then say, "Here's a flash from the past," right? And it's just so that anybody who's having a real problem with that weird compression transition or whatever happened, now they see a better video. And I'm doing it because of just something to do. But you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes just literally picking up your old content, dusting it off, and setting it right back down is I mean, that's not like it's going to win, but it's got the potential to have a different result. And it doesn't have to be your best content. It could be just stuff you think is important.
Yes, that is true.
So those guys are definitely debating G23's channel name. So it was something else, and I forgot if he ever told us. I think it's G23 Reviews, and then he changed it to G23 because YouTube. It wasn't until like 2014 or something that they let you change it.
Yeah, it was G23 Reviews because that's his vanity URL.
And that's something else that bothered me is DC Project doesn't have their own vanity one, I think. And I was like, that has to be a factor of them not using it enough or something. Like not, using enough elements or something. There's got to be some checklist that the logarithm goes, okay, enough views, enough something. Because I got channels that are tiny. Every Second Matters has its own. It's got 800 channel subs or whatever. Anyway, so there's a lot of people chatting or back and forth with y'all chatting about G23s. I don't know if it's worth bringing all that up because bringing it up on the screen or not, but
probably not. I mean, that's something that we'll end up having to flesh out over a few days or weeks or whatever to try to get him find out on what he wants to do.
As far as the rest of the show, then I think we kind of started out with. I appreciate everybody too who might be listening to this who was in here before, but I don't try to have like a script. It's just that I do not like just going over the news of the day. So I don't think we did it all. If we did, we barely touched on it because it was adjacent to something else we were chatting about. And it seems like it's been pretty effective. But when I'm the one rambling half the time, it's hard to have a real perspective on it. So I threw a poll up earlier with 17 votes on it now. How good was this month's Every Second Matters if 10 is the best? So 53% of the people picked 8 to 10, that it's been a great show. 6 to 7 said pretty good. Nobody said it was okay. And then 24% again say that it was the worst show ever that's happened ever. So I don't know if they're farting around or if it's really just been bad or not. I'm not looking for applause or nothing as much as feedback because, Every Second Matter has been going on for a long, long time. And this was a lot of participation. And to me, it seemed like pretty interesting, but I don't know if it was really effective or useful. I mean, we can just always talk to talk. I really would rather, honestly, I'd like it to be something where people show up and it's sort of like AmCon, where everybody introduces, this is who showed up this month. Everybody already knows what you do. So what have you been doing? What do you need? And then have 20, 30 minutes worth of this is what's going on. Here's what you might need to know, or maybe you didn't know about this. And I'm talking YouTube is doing something, or we've got that DC Project rally that's coming up in Washington that's kind of new on the agenda. People might not realize that's coming up or something. Or there's 2 seats opened up because some issues happened with one of our best advocates in the community up in the state of Washington who's not going to be able to attend KD's Train and Learn event. So now we're going to try to effort to, get something accomplished there, right? Something like that where we have a sit rep and then spend the rest of the show just kind of delving into whatever is at hand, right? If maybe it's addressing whatever technical issues, maybe it's big picture, maybe it's strategy, maybe it's going back and comparing something with what happened. We are living in the week right now that was the 92 riots. There's a lot of examples there, right? So having something that happens on the regular gives us an option to to accomplish all that. But I guess I'm looking for feedback to know, if this was a good format, I guess, or if this was good topics. Or if there's a better way, something else we could have done it, a better way for me to host it, I'm down for that. It's not like I read a book on how to host. I just do it. So
it worked out pretty good in my opinion. I mean,
he could change his channel name to Sue, and then he'd have all the issues of a boy channel being named Sue and a channel being named even worse name, the G23 maybe. Would it be worse to be Sue or G23? Like sue is a word and a name, and it doesn't describe it. Well, I guess it describes suing things, but that's it. That might be the worst word.
Right.
Well, I don't think what we're talking about, Ghost, is when you, at least for what I was thinking when you guys were talking about his name, is when you type in at G23 on YouTube, where normally it starts to, what's that called? Predict what your channel you're trying to type in there so that it can create one of them fancy links in gray. That's where you type in, up until recently. Well, now, though, it always comes right up to his channel. So it figured out that I'm always trying to link to him, I guess.
But somebody new, it's going to be
somebody new is going to go, oh, G23, you mean? And then there's like a list of 700 G23s, and none of them are him. They're all card things.
And
that are not.
further, when you talk about the ability to dominate on Google search and the actual search engine and things like that, G23, it's going to pull up a freaking Glock every single time. You're not going to beat Glock with G23. So, and Ghost has an idea of what I'm talking about, because Ghost has had a similar issue. I don't have that much of a problem anymore. There's some Japanese, something that's, I don't know if it's a video game channel or what, that's CloverTac that I've had to deal with a little bit, and I think Ghost had some video game issue or something going on. So, but yeah, it's going to be problematic later on. It's not as problematic now, but I mean, do you want to fix an issue, in the event that you do go viral, blow up, get big? Do you want to fix an issue now that, could potentially be an issue then, and then you don't have to worry about it?
All right. Well, with that, I think that's a good way to say we're getting to the 3-hour point, and marathons don't really help us more than short shows. So I think this one's been a productive one. I don't shy away from a long show. Too many of the people that I value are out there driving trucks or working shift jobs, and they do value long format stuff that they can listen to. My goal, my strive to make something that's different than what they've heard and something useful so that they can hopefully be inspired or motivated. Often, the reason one of the big reasons I do this is because often something that'll be said in one of these shows, they'll either come in a comment or say something in a follow-up chat somebody's having that something gets sparked. So I've valued online live conversations since 2004 when I worked at AOL. Actually, 1997. What am I saying? Since I worked at AOL and got to experience real online communication. I mean, I'd talked to people online before that, but it's very clunky and it was weird. Once AOL happened and we got to see sort of a streamlined, fancy internet compared to the clunky stuff of the past. And I had sort of a glimpse of what could happen because internet was slow back then, very slow. It was dial-up and computers were very slow and there weren't that many people online and they weren't talking about that many things, right? But AOL was kind of a little bit different. And internally, I got to see a flash forward of what was coming. And I have not been satisfied with the internet since because there's so much potential here. However, conversations like this one, the community of people that have been involved tonight, not just in here, but there's a lot of people in here tonight that were heavy hitters. But the people chatting have all been participatory in many levels over a long time with this conversation, and that element of what the internet offers blows me away. What happened? Everybody just left? Oh, that was just it was just echo. For some reason, I was thinking there was like 6 people in here. Anyway, thanks Echo for jumping in. Thanks to, I'm not going to try to remember everybody as I'm blabbing here at the end, but thanks to everybody who jumped in live and the people that participated in that chat, in the chat. All that will leave some kind of remnant behind. And again, for those people that are listening in the future, appreciate those that support what we're doing. And again, let us know however it is you like to, which direction you'd like to see us going. With that, I'll let Clover throw in any last comments and wrap it up, and then we'll head out.
I don't got much. There's some chatter out there just to kind of close out on the G23 thing a little bit. Um, is YouTube is a lot smarter with the algorithm and the way it works than you think it is, and so you don't have to, um, just because you're searching G23 and you've never searched G23 before, um, doesn't mean that a new viewer that has never watched anything remotely related to G23's content, anybody he's ever had on, anybody he's ever backlink, including gun websites, including, you know, Boss and Rich and whoever it might be. Um, YouTube can the algorithms can put all that together, and that's the way that they read, um, you know, their viewers and try to serve up the content that the viewers want them to watch. So incognito mode, if you're ever doing any of your homework for YouTube, try to do that from incognito mode. That's it, man. It's been a great. Every second matters. We're right at the 3 hour mark, and probably a good time to pull the plug.
Right on. So Echo did jump back in. So if you want to close it out, throw any plugs out there?
Yeah, just make sure you tune in Friday at 6:05 p.m. Eastern for my show. We're going to be doing some 223 service rifle reloading. And thank you very much, G, for the invite. Really glad to come on and help you support the Second Amendment anytime possible.
Right on. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back to pick you up later.